Hey everybody, welcome to just another episode of Adapt or Perish, exactly like every single one that's come before it. I'm so far from serious. It's episode 100 and I'm so goddamn excited. Ari and I love doing this show so much and you're all a big part of that. We don't plan on slowing down anytime soon and I'm looking forward to our next 100 episodes. I can't wait for you to hear what we have planned, but more than that, I can't wait to get to this epic conversation, which is very long, about Les Mis that we've got ready for you right now. We have talked about the book. We've talked about movies. We've talked about TV shows. But today's episode is all about the musical. But as always, before we get started, let me tell you about our next episode. And I swear to God, it's not about Les Mis. What better way for us to both take it easy after this crazy run of 3 episodes and commemorate episode 101 than with a look at Dodie Smith's children's classic, The 101 Dalmatians, famously adapted by Disney not once but twice. We'll be discussing the 1956 book, Disney's original 1961 animated adaptation, and the 1996 live-action remake starring Glenn Close. Today's episode is a little late, so episode 101 will be out in only 1 week on Tuesday, September 21st. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections about today's episode or any others that you'd like to hear on the show, remember to email adaptorperishcast@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, we'd love it if you would share that with the world by leaving a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. We're also on Patreon at patreon.com/adaptcast. We've got a patron-only community and our bi-weekly bonus show, Adapt or Perish Plus, with episodes releasing every Tuesday between episodes of this show. We hope you check it out. Show notes from this and all other episodes can be found at adaptorperishcast.com. And with that, on with the show, Adapt or Perish, episode 100, Les Misérables, the musical. Hello and welcome to episode 100 of Adapt or Perish. I'm Jeremy Latour.
Hi, I'm Ari. I'm freaking out.
Why are you freaking out?
It's a big deal.
It's no different than episode number 1, except now there's pressure and people listen.
That's the only
That's
thing.
the only
There's
thing.
more pressure, and it's something we've been. It's pressure of our own making, truly, because we've been building up to this. If we were just like episode 100, whatever, it's 100 episodes. Like some people are like, do not make a big deal out of 100 episodes,
No.
and we're not one of them. We built it up. We built it up. We are now a week late in recording because we built it up.
I was a little under the weather. That wasn't because we built it up. I was a little
Yes.
under the weather, and we wanted to be at our best for episode 100.
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, had it been a normal episode, I would have been like, "You put your headphones on, sir."
You need to suffer through this?
Yes.
I think I've suffered through episodes before.
Yeah.
I didn't want to suffer my way through this because this episode is going to involve a little bit of singing. So I need to be
all singing, all dancing.
me. Let me make sure that I've stretched my mouth out.
What to do to die today at a minute or two till 2? A thing distinctly hard to say, but harder still to do. For there'll be a tattoo at 20 to 2, a rat-a-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat.
I don't know what that is.
I thought you were going to chime in.
Are you
at some
speaking
point.
in tongues?
You theater kids
Sweet.
out there, hit me up. You know what I'm talking
The
about.
fuck was that?
It's a vocal exercise
Okay.
to get your tongue limbered up. You've never done that?
No.
Okay, well,
I was the kind of theater kid that didn't do that kind of stuff.
I mean, you didn't
Yeah.
do theater games in Maine?
No, we did. No, we really didn't because we only had like one actual theater kid in our group.
Yeah.
And I feel like she was very selective about when she went all theater kid on all of us. So most of us were just kind of like, we're hanging out, we're doing musicals. Let's do it, everybody. If I were a rich man.
Wow. I mean, hopefully that stands you in good stead here. Because here we go.
I think we should talk about Les Misérables,
The musical?
the musical.
Okay.
It's episode number 100. Let's actually take a step back here for a second. Thank you all. We are not a big show. We are a tiny show, and we have a very small fan base. But you know what? You are all fantastic, and we love you. And I can't believe we've done 100 episodes.
Beggars belief.
Like, I still remember when we hit episode 50 and did Charlotte's Web, like that was like episode 50. And I was like, I can't believe we've done 50 episodes. I got to be honest. I was bullshitting people a little bit.
Yeah.
I think I was bullshitting myself a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I could believe that we had done 50 episodes.
Yeah.
But I no bullshit. 100 episodes is a little crazy to me.
It's a lot.
That's a high number. That's 3 digits now.
Ironically, until this week, never missed an episode.
That's not true.
That's not true. We missed
3 episodes.
We missed
in
2
100
when
episodes.
We had our child.
2 when we had our child, and 1 when our nanny ghosted us.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
blew up our life.
Yeah.
I don't even. That was like a year ago.
Like a year ago.
It's like a year ago. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
So many things have happened since we started doing this show.
Our dog got eaten.
Our dog got eaten. We moved. I was going to talk about happy things.
Yeah.
We got married.
Yeah.
We moved.
Yeah.
We had a fucking baby.
Yeah. Who's like almost 2.
He's almost 2 years old now, and he's a little kid, and he's the best. We've changed jobs. We've done so many different things.
We changed jobs.
But this has been a constant. And you know what? I need it. I need it. I need this show.
It's a kind way of saying we both got fired from our jobs.
That is. I'll talk about that with my therapist. Thank you very much.
Great,
I don't think I need
fun.
to talk about that with my listeners.
Why are we doing this? What is happening?
Well, we're stalling. That's
Yeah.
really what's happening. We're stalling because it's episode 100, and we've been building this up for a long time, and we're talking about Les Misérables, the celebrated musical, because we've been talking about Les Misérables for a while now. And it is weird to see a plan come to its end, and this is something that's happened to us many times.
Yeah.
Like when we did our big Sherlock Holmes episode, which was, do you remember which episode that was?
No.
30.
That's crazy because we actually just got an email about it today, so that's kind of funny.
Insane.
Yeah.
And that was so much prep. And then we did it, and that was only 1 episode, and then it was over.
Yeah.
And we've done like when we did Pride and Prejudice and it turned into 3 episodes. Like there are things we take a long time to do.
Yeah.
Dracula was big.
Dracula was really big.
Robin
I
Hood.
remember being, oh my God, I can't believe we finished Robin Hood.
We did Robin Hood for a really long time. This is the longest we've ever spent on anything. It
Yeah.
is now September, and we've been working on this since January.
It's true.
And here we sit. We have talked about 12 different versions of Les Mis in addition to the book.
So many.
Spanning the years from 1934 to 2018. And here we sit. Do you want to get started?
Now bring me prisoner 24601. Your time is up and your parole's begun. You know what that means.
Yes, it means I'm free.
No, it means you get your yellow ticket of leave. You are a thief.
I stole a loaf of bread.
You robbed a house.
I broke a window pane. My sister's child was close to death. We were starving.
You will starve again unless you learn the meaning of the law.
I know the meaning of those 19 years a slave to the law.
5 years for what you did. The rest because you tried to run. Yes, 24601.
My name is Jean Valjean.
And I'm Javert. Do not forget my name. Do not forget me. 24601.
Holy fuck, this musical is amazing. We've talked about this before, but we got to go back for a second. What was your introduction to Les Mis the musical?
Oh, well,
You know what? Actually, let me ask a different question, and then you can answer this the first question second. Was the musical your introduction to Les Mis?
yes, of course it was.
Okay, I just wanted to make that clear. Please answer my first question.
Oh, well. No, it was one of about 6 CDs that we listened to constantly in the car in our family, in the Libshaw family.
Mhm.
And we had, I think what we had was like highlights from the original London production, because I remember seeing the 10th anniversary and thinking like, there's a lot of stuff they added. But actually it's just the CD that we had didn't have all the like recitative and a lot of the songs, I guess. So in my mind, like the songs flow into each other in a certain way that they don't.
Mhm.
So, but anyway, yeah, we used to listen to it in the car. It was something that I'm not gonna say my whole family could get behind, because I don't think my parents were ever into it, but like the 3 kids, holy shit. Like we would assign roles at the beginning, and we would just sing those parts, in the car as we would drive, and then my brothers would get mad at me because I'd want to sing all the roles.
But you were the oldest, so it was fine.
But I was oldest, so it was fine. Well, they wanted me to sing just the girls' parts, which I didn't want to sing. I wanted to be like Javert and stuff.
And for a show that has some pretty great girl parts in it.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's worth calling out, but I don't blame you for a second.
Yeah. So anyway,
I want everyone to notice when we started doing that was actually off the cuff.
Yeah.
I didn't know we were going to do it, and then you started, and of course you started with Javert.
Yes. That
Even though between the two of
one
us,
of my favorite characters in musical theater.
it is hard. Like it's harder for me to sing Valjean than it is for me to sing Javert.
Yeah, the roles reversed, because Javert is very low for me and Valjean is very high for you.
Yep.
No, this is a Libshaw family tradition, and even now, if all us kids are together, we get a couple drinks in us. Yeah, we're singing Les Mis.
Mhm.
It's happening. What about you?
Well, I came to it much later. The quick version is I didn't know shit about Les Mis for a really long time. I always kind of lumped it in with, if you had asked me when I was like 16 or 17 who wrote Les Mis, I would have said, I don't know, probably Andrew Lloyd Webber. I know that I don't like it very much.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was like the
That hurts my heart.
Cats and Phantom of the Opera and stuff like that. Which like, here's the thing. They have their fans.
Yeah.
I'm not in that group. I knew there were urchins in it. And that was pretty much it.
Mm-hmm.
I knew nothing about Les Mis. I knew nothing about Les Mis proper. I certainly knew nothing about Les Mis the musical.
Yeah.
Then when I was in college, what happened was my mom went down to New York City, hung out with some friends, and she grew up in New York and grew up going to shows and had been to a million of them, but she'd never seen Les Mis. This was not a thing. Like growing up in my house, the shows we listened to, because we listened to a lot of shows, we listened to My Fair Lady, Fiddler on the Roof, stuff like that.
Yeah.
We listened to a lot of like Lerner and Lowe, Rodgers and Hammerstein, things like that. She went to go see it when I was in college. And like every good thing that people discover, they found out about it because their mom tells them about it.
Right.
That's how that works, right?
Yeah.
Every cool thing.
I mean, let's hope. For Calvin's sake, because I'm very cool.
You are very cool.
Yeah.
I'm also very cool, though. And I'm going to show him some cool shit. He knows that Chewbacca is a Wookiee.
He does. If you say, Calvin, what is Chewbacca? He says, a Wookiee.
This kid's not even 2 years old, and he knows that Chewbacca is a Wookiee.
I couldn't resist. I bought him a little Chewbacca, or I don't think it's actually Chewbacca.
It's not Chewbacca.
It's a Wookiee.
It's a different Wookiee, and it hurts my heart every time he calls it Chewbacca.
At Target.
Because it's not Chewbacca.
And it makes a noise if you squeeze it, and he's like a little bit scared of it. He'll like it one of these days.
Sad and cute and beautiful.
Yeah.
So my mom sees Les Mis, and she says, you got to see this. I'm like, I'm in college. I'm not going to see it. There was a touring company coming through Boston, where I was going to college at the time, and she says, here's the deal. I'm buying you a ticket to it. Happy Hanukkah. So she gets me a ticket to see Les Mis. I go by myself. I know nothing about it. Never heard. The only song I'd ever heard from Les Mis was Castle on a Cloud, which I heard in someone did in a talent show when I was in high school. So I go see it. She got me a second row seat. And this was, the Les Mis touring company. This was the touring company that was on the road for decades. So they knew their shit. Blew my fucking mind. Most amazing show I've ever seen live in my entire life. And I came out of it loving Les Misérables.
Yes.
I loved it so much. And the cool thing was, seeing it in Boston at that time, Boston's not that big. For the next few weeks, I bumped into Marius on the street, and I was at a Best Buy, and I looked over, and there was like a member of the company, and of course I recognized her because I was in the second row.
Yeah.
And I said, "Excuse me." We were looking at CDs at the time, which is
as
a very 2003 thing to do.
As was the custom at the time.
Yeah. And I said, "Excuse me, are you in Les Mis? Down on the common?" And she goes, "Yeah." And she leaned back. She says, "And here's Fontaine." And Fontaine was right there. And so I talked to a member of the company in Fontaine, which is just a cool way. It's a cool thing. It is cool to run into people who literally introduced you to a thing that had it went from being something that I didn't care about or know about to being one of my favorite things.
Well, because you went to Emerson, which is like basically in the theater district, so you had a higher chance of running into people that were...
I saw it at the Colonial Theater in Boston, which is now the Emerson Colonial Theater.
There it is.
So anyway, that was my introduction to Les Mis, and then I went from there to the 10th anniversary show.
Yes.
Because it at the time was the only one you could watch on video.
Yeah.
So I got that. Found out about Colin Wilkinson and Michael Ball and Leah Salong and the whole bit.
We had that on VHS tape. We watched that shit over and over again.
Yeah. So that CD. That was the only one I've ever really listened to. So
Gotcha.
I have definitely sampled like the West End and Broadway and the original French production. I've sampled those a little bit. The version that I listen to and have listened to for 20 years now is the 10th anniversary show.
Yeah. Yeah, I will also say, and this may give you some indication of like the type of child and young person and theater kid that I was, my audition song for many, many, many years was I Dreamed a Dream.
Mm-hmm.
So when all the other little kids were singing Castle on a Cloud, I was in there singing Fontaine's Death Ballad.
Now I feel like this might be a good way to kind of segue into the show a little bit. Were you a belter? Do you feel that it actually suited you, or do you think you should have done In My Life?
I should have done him. I should have done In My Life. I actually am more of I'm like a soprano. Like when my voice was in training, I am no longer a fine singer, but I am actually like a soprano that wishes they were a belter and doesn't have that kind of vocal power. When I took voice lessons, they were always trying to get me to sing like the really like high soprano songs, like from The Secret Garden and stuff like that, and I had no inclination.
I remember one of my most embarrassing moments, like doing musicals. We did I was Tevian fiddler in my junior year of high school, and then I was pseudolus in A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum senior year.
Mm-hmm.
And so, okay, I am not trained in singing even a little. What am I? Am I a baritone?
You're baritone.
I'm baritone because bass is the bottom.
Yeah, you're not
right?
at the bottom.
I'm not a bass, but I'm not a tenor.
I mean, can you sing Bring Him Home?
No,
Then
fuck no.
You're not a tenor.
I can't do that. So I'm definitely a baritone. And when we did Forum, I had listened to the Zero Mostel version, but I had also been listening to the Nathan Lane, the revival.
Yeah.
And so, of course, like, I don't know if this was your experience, but like, we were high school students. We weren't like creating our interpretation from whole cloth. We were taking inspiration from what we saw.
Sure.
And so if, here's the thing, when we did our production of it, of Fiddler, we stole the joke from the movie about New York America and Chicago America from the end. Like, we just put that in ours because we liked it and it was in the movie and it's not in the musical. So when we did Forum, during the song Pretty Little Picture, there's a refrain at the end where they all go, Pretty Little Masterpiece, where Pseudolus and Hero and can't remember her name. Doesn't matter. It also bothers me that the show we did in my senior year, I didn't bother me at the time, but now it certainly bothers me that all the guy parts were great, but all the women parts, you had one of two choices. You could either be the one shrew or one of the 12 concubines.
There you go.
Which is not cool for a high school production.
I think it's not cool.
But we didn't know it at the time.
Cool.
And I feel bad about it now. But anyway, there's this refrain where everyone sings Pretty Little Masterpiece. In the Nathan Lane version, he goes into like a falsetto and does a solo because he's Nathan Lane and he's amazing. He can do anything. And so he does this thing where he goes up really high and sings Pretty Little Masterpiece like by himself. And I thought, I'm going to do that. And I did it in our show.
Uh-huh.
And my voice broke 17 times in the course of singing that one line. And it was a goddamn embarrassment. And I think I tried it like the first night and didn't do it the second night because holy shit, what an embarrassment.
Yeah.
It did not work for me.
You could have done it if you had some vocal lessons, I think.
Oh, I'm sure. But I, again, never had one lesson.
Never had one lesson.
So I'm definitely baritone, and Valjean's a little bit hard for me.
Yeah. Way to bring that back around. I feel like we've been on a tangent for like 15 minutes.
This whole episode is going to be tangents. Everybody strap in. I assume you all strapped in at like minute 2.
Okay. I'm a little worried.
Do you actually want to do the show?
I kind of do. I'm a little worried we're ahead of ourselves because it's hard for me to imagine. But there may be some people out there going, I genuinely do not know what you are talking about. What is this musical of which you speak?
Okay, so, as we've talked about in the past episodes, Victor Hugo wrote the book Les Misérables. It was adapted many, many times.
Oh, we're going far back.
Well, no, real quick.
Okay.
It's taking longer because you're interrupting me.
Okay, go.
It was adapted many times. There's movies and plays and all kinds of stuff. One of the ways that it was adapted, in 1980, there were these two French gentlemen, Claude Michel Schoenberg and Alain Boublil. In 1980, they wrote a concept album, a musical of Les Misérables, because they had gone to see Oliver, and they thought, you know what, we could, let's take this French book. Let's take like one of the greatest French book of all time, and we can do it in that style. We can write a musical of it.
They saw The Artful Dodger and went, this urchin speaks to us.
Exactly. In 1980, they did a concept album of Les Misérables, and of course it was in French. But then that same year, they did a stage production of it. This is notable. We talked about it in episode 2. That stage production was directed by Robert Hossein, who also directed the 1982 movie with Lino Ventura that we watched. That was fantastic.
Yes.
And incorporated elements from the show that we could recognize. Even though the show went through a lot of changes over the years, it was still interesting to see like, oh, no, this is the first adaptation that exists in a world where the Les Mis musical is a thing.
Right.
It ran for 100 performances, and it was at an arena.
Yeah.
This was not in a theater. And the reason it closed after 100 performances is because another show was booked in the same venue.
Right.
So they could not continue. But I think they said something like 500,000 people had seen it over the course of 100 performances.
This is still the French version?
Yes. One of the people who found out about this show 3 years later in 1983 was Cameron McIntosh.
Yeah.
Who, what's that thing you and your brothers watched all the time?
Hey, Mr. Producer.
What is that?
It's like a salute to Cameron McIntosh. It was like similar to the Les Mis 10th anniversary. It was a big live production, and it had like little clips and songs and people singing songs from all the productions that he's produced down the years.
Because he's done a lot.
He's done a lot. Also famously like in the news recently for saying like really shitty things about like trans people. So not cool.
Well, here's the great thing about all of this. None of the love that I think, I'm going to speak for you for a second. I'm definitely speaking for me. None of the love that I have for Les Mis is due to any none of my love is placed in Cameron McIntosh.
Yeah, I think like the world has come around on Cameron McIntosh like not being super cool, but like he's extremely rich, so I don't think he cares what any of us think of him.
No. Yeah, like I mean, this guy he's a producer in the truest sense of the word.
Yes.
He didn't create any of this stuff,
No.
but he definitely moved the pieces.
Definitely made money off of it.
He moved the pieces in place for it to be, created and adapted and, brought to the world. So, I think he deserves some credit for that. But like we're talking about Schoenberg and Boublil and Herbert Kretzmer, who did the English translation a few years later. So we'll bring up Cameron McIntosh. He's of course going to come up throughout this episode, but like, he's not my favorite guy in the world.
Yeah, we'll give him exactly as much airtime as he deserves, which is like
some.
A number. Well, the interesting thing, you mentioned the translation by Herbert Kretzmer. Like the interesting thing is that it is not actually a straight translation.
No, it's not.
The libretto that we are also familiar with is not
in the
actually
in
the English-speaking world. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to be Anglo-centric. It is, in fact, itself an adaptation. So we sort of have like an Inception scenario here. I don't know. I never saw Inception, but it's sort of like...
It's not what it is.
It's not what it is.
Nope.
He loosely adapted, although the music is the same, he adapted the libretto from French to English without doing like a literal translation. However, all of the other... like 20 other languages that it's been translated into, those are all more like traditional translations of the English version. I believe that's what I came to understand.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I tried to find out, two things about all of that. One, the thing that I was trying to find out that I couldn't really find a great like source for is the French version that's performed now, how much of that is the original French and how much of it has been adapted based on the English translation?
Who can say?
And I'm just not sure. I'm sure someone can say,
yes.
But I didn't find anyone who would say.
The person who can, there is someone who can say, it is not us.
No. But the other thing about it, we watched a documentary about it, and even Kretzmer kind of broke everything down into thirds. He said like a third of it was straight translation, a third of it was kind of interpretation, and then a third of it was just complete invention.
Yeah.
Where he just went, so I don't care what they said in the original, I'm going to make up my own story and lyrics for this part of it right here. So, anytime you see the show or like the movie, for example, which we're going to get to, you're going to see Schoenberg and Boublil and Kretzmer all credited.
Yes.
Because they all, even though Kretzmer didn't come to it until 1985, they all kind of take responsibility for the Les Mis that we know.
Yeah.
So 1983, Cameron McIntosh gets the concept album. He decides this should be a musical. So over the course of the next 2 years, they start working on it, and he brings in Kretzmer to write the English lyrics. It premiered at the Barbican Theatre in 1985 in London and moved to the West End. It was adapted and directed by Trevor Nunn and John Caird. And it starred a number of good people some of whom are favorites on this show, some of whom will show up later in this episode. A gentleman named Colin Wilkinson as Jean Valjean, Roger Allam as Javert, Patti LuPone
Miss
as
Patty.
Fontaine.
The divine Miss Patty.
Do you want to take a quick sidebar in this episode 100 to commemorate your love for Patti LuPone?
I do, although the funny thing is, like, I don't know if she's distanced herself from this or what, but she definitely did not show up in, like, any of the, anniversary concerts or anything like that. I don't know if she just got too famous or her schedule would not allow, but she really was not did not loom large in, all of this stuff that we were watching.
I was reading about it. So in the 25th anniversary show, which we'll talk about in more detail later, the entire original 1985 cast shows up, and multiple casts. The original Barbican cast is there, and I think the original Broadway cast and the original West End cast, even though they share a lot of people.
Yeah.
And two of the people from the Barbican cast who were not there, and this was called out in the reading that I did, one was Angel Ross, who apparently just came right out and said, like, I can't sing that anymore.
Yeah.
And Patti LuPone, who was just not present.
Yeah.
Like, no statement, no nothing. Just Patti LuPone.
She did not issue a statement to
not
the press.
present. And you know what?
Fine.
Here's the thing. She can do whatever she wants. And you know why she can do whatever she wants?
She's fucking Patti LuPone.
That's it. That's it. I mean, that's it right there. I don't even love her as much as you do, but goddamn, do I have a lot of respect for Patti LuPone.
So much.
I got nothing but respect for the woman.
So anyway, this is probably the last time we'll mention Patti LuPone in this episode. Please continue.
Alan Armstrong as Thenardier,
Mhm.
Francis Ruffel as Eponine, Michael Ball as
The
Marius.
Divine Michael.
I feel like we're going to get into some real detail with these people when we get to the 10th anniversary show, because that's when, like, that's where you can see them perform.
Yeah, I mean the 10th anniversary. Not to get ahead of ourselves, but they call it the Dream Cast because it was a cast that it was like you make up your dream cast. It was like Cameron McIntosh has personally assembled this cast,
Mhm.
and I think one thing I never quite realized as a kid was like this wasn't the original cast. Some of these people never had actually like performed together or performed these roles on stage. It was just Cameron McIntosh. Like, this is my vision for what my
Yeah.
dream cast would be if I were producing this show right now.
Well, I mean, you look at the recordings of it too, because what is it? 88. There was the symphonic version, which is it's the only version that's the entire score. And originally he wanted to use the Australian cast for it, but then he actually branched out a little bit and brought in some different people. But like Philip Quast is in that one as Javert.
Well, he's Australian.
Right, no, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That was I was drawing a direct line.
That's fine.
But thank you for calling out the direct line.
Please continue.
But there's all these different recordings of it, and I feel like it's worth it to just call this out. We're not really going to talk about the albums very much. I feel like the reason we're just talking about the show in general and then the recordings of it is because if you're going to watch something, there was a level of adaptation that was going on in these, I'm going to call them quote unquote movies, even though only one of them is like a movie in the true sense.
They're like mostly like staged concerts.
Yeah. But there were some real creative choices that were made in those stage adaptations, even though they're staged concerts.
Yeah.
And so I think they fit a little more with what we talk about on the show, whereas the recordings of the cast performances, I just feel like that's not really our thing.
Sure.
Bottom line, I don't think there's a good or a bad one. Like, they're all good in their own way because they're all Les Mis. And I'm sure everyone has their favorite version of it. Like, my favorite is the 10th anniversary show. I'm sure there are some people who are like, no, only original Broadway and that's it, or original West End. Or there's some people who are like, all of you are idiots. The symphonic version is the only one that has everything in it. So why would you listen to anything but that?
Probably people out there going, I stand Nick Jonas.
I was going to say, I think that's just you, but that's not true.
That's not true.
That's not true even a little.
That's not even true.
We're going to get to Nick. Don't you worry about it. So in 1987, the show moved to Broadway. It was not a critical hit at the beginning, which the creators, especially Cameron McIntosh, loved to talk about, that it was not a critical sensation at the beginning. Because if you did a show that was arguably the biggest show in the world and the critics hated it at first, I think that's a chip you'd carry on your shoulder for a long time.
For a heckin' while. Well, because the documentary we watched, he was like, yeah, like the critics said, like, how dare you make a frivolous musical about this serious piece of art by Victor Hugo? And like, apparently the popular reaction was more like, this musical is very boring and dull.
Yeah. Well, no. What they were saying was like the snooty critics said, "How dare you make a frivolous musical?" And the shitty critics for like the popular papers were like, "This is boring and long." But the people
loved it.
The people loved it.
The people flocked.
And
to
this
it.
is I'm going to bring this up. This is something I've been wanting to say for a long time now. Going through all of this, that I'm so excited about because now we have context, and I love context on this show because I heard that interview a number of years ago, and I didn't have the context for it, but now I do, which is this. All those critics who say that how dare you make a frivolous musical of this beautiful work of the French language by Victor Hugo, I don't think any of them ever read the fucking book.
Yeah.
Because the book is hilarious.
Yeah.
It's hilarious and light, and we've been talking about it for 4 hours now in our other episodes. If you're gonna make a show that is exciting and fun and funny and heartbreaking, that's the book.
Yeah.
So you get that shit out of here.
Get it out of here.
You're wrong. Making a musical of Les Mis is a perfectly reasonable thing to do.
Hot take by Jeremy Latour. Les Misérables is a good subject for a musical.
I believe I said a perfectly reasonable subject. That is my hot take. It is perfectly reasonable to make a musical of Les Misérables.
Well, I'm glad that it has your blessing.
So in 1987, the show moved to Broadway. Colin Wilkinson came along. Then we get Judy Kuhn as Cosette. Judy Kuhn?
Kuhn.
I'm so sorry. Francis Ruffel came with them as Eponine. Terrence Mann took over as Javert. When Lea Salonga joined the cast at some point, I'm not positive whether she was in London or whether she was on Broadway.
I don't know.
I mean, I feel like one of the fun things about watching all of these is that if you were a Disney kid in the 80s and 90s, it's pretty delightful to watch. Because Lea Salonga, better known as...
Which, Jasmine?
Jasmine and Mulan. And Judy Kuhn was...
Pocahontas.
Which is
not...
amazing.
Not amazing.
Kind of amazing.
I mean, her voice is amazing, but not great casting. Anyway.
Yeah.
Please continue.
It ran through 2003. There was a big 2006 revival. This show... It'll run for 20 years. Like, this show has run for decades in so many places. It's kind of crazy. I think we're going to circle back around to how long it's run later when we get to the final kind of videotaped performance of it in English. But, let's stop around there. Let's stop around 2006.
Okay.
Les Mis is huge. Its first 10 years, it exploded, suddenly performed in all these languages all around the world. And so we get our first filmed version of Les Mis in 1995. It was directed by Gavin Taylor. It was recorded at the Royal Albert Hall. Can I run through some of the people who were in the cast?
Sure.
Colin Wilkinson as Jean Valjean.
Classic.
Philip Quast as Javert.
Classic.
Alan Armstrong and Jenny Galloway
Couldn't be
as
better.
Thénardier
Oh
and
my
Madame
God.
Thénardier.
So good.
Judy Kuhn as Cosette. Michael Ball, the man himself, as
We
Marius.
Hang
on. We'll get back to hang on.
Fell
You hang
in
on.
love with Michael
Hang on.
Ball over
Leah-
the course of these watchings.
Leah Salonga as Eponine, Ruthie Henschel as Fantine, and a number of other very good people. But I want to call them out specifically.
Including some kids, like the little girl that didn't flinch when the bomb went off or whatever.
I feel like this is one of those things that's just a great shared experience. I'm sure that every single person who knows this show knows exactly what you're talking about right now.
Yep.
Because she is a goddamn professional.
She's a professional.
I think it was one of the guns that went off.
It was. I think it might have been. No, I think it was a balloon that popped. You know those balloons that they had them up in the net. So anyway, this poor little kid singing Castle on a Cloud jumps out of her skin, continues to sing.
Does not miss a beat. She's a goddamn professional.
Yes.
This is my Les Mis. And this isn't one of those things where I'm going to say to anyone, well, I don't know why you would like Alfie Boe as Valjean, because I'll tell you this, he's not Colin Wilkinson. That's not me. That's not the point I'm trying to make right now.
Yeah.
This is my Les Mis. Colin Wilkinson is my Jean Valjean, but I'm never going to say he's the Jean Valjean.
Yeah.
But if someone else were to say it, I might agree with them.
Well, it's funny because we got to the end of watching all these, and I said, you know what? I honestly I think it's still Philip Quast for me. After seeing all these in a row, and you were like, oh, I'm worried that people are gonna think that we're saying that nothing can top this 10th anniversary cast. And I was like, no, I think people understand you can have a preference.
Yeah.
I think Philip Quast's performance. I mean, listen, I was going to say I didn't see a bad Javert, but we'll get into that. In any of these live performances, all the Javerts were amazing. So, it just comes down to sort of personal preference. And I think Philip Quast really, really does it for me. For those who haven't seen this, it is interesting the way that they staged it. So they're in full costume, but it's not really staged. They're standing in front of microphones with, I'm sure, prompters with the lyrics, because sometimes you can kind of see them reading the lyrics a little bit. So it's basically a concert, but in costume. They do a lot of the recitative, but not all of it. And then there's this huge orchestra and then a huge chorus of people in Les Mis T-shirts,
Which was formal wear in 1995.
As you do.
Singing their goddamn hearts out.
Singing their goddamn hearts out in the big choral numbers. So that is basically how it was staged. And it is interesting, what they choose to include and what they don't. So there's no, there's really no props. I think some of the other concert versions, they get a little more into props. I don't think they even do, his yellow passport or anything in this one. I don't think they even do the candlesticks. It is funny at the beginning because Colin Wilkinson is wearing his convict's outfit clearly just over his mayor's outfit, and he kind of has to pull it off at one point. And Fantine, there's this line about how she sold her hair, but they haven't done anything different to her hair because it's obviously a staged concert, so who cares? They don't really change costumes throughout the show. It's not that kind of thing, and they're all on stage the whole time. That's the other thing. Everyone is sitting there. So even in do you hear the people sing Fantine is just sitting there even though she's dead in the show, singing her heart out. Everybody's there together. But anyway, what I was gonna say was a thing that I noticed, and I don't know if this is actor preference or this was something that was built into the show, that Philip Quast is one of the only people that gets a wig change. At the intermission, he goes from his dark hair to his gray ponytail, because when he does his suicide, there's this very specific gesture that he does that he kind of
takes his ponytail
out and he's kind of stroking his hair. And I just laughed because I was thinking is that something that Philip Quast was no, guys, I have to do this. This is part of my process. I have to get into character. You have to give me the wig change. I'm sorry. I know it's just a concert, but this is something I need to get into this character. So as we were watching, one of the things I had sort of the luxury of doing as we watched all these different versions was kind of watching for a different thing each time. So in our watch of the 10th anniversary, what I decided to do was write down every lyric that was like adult or sexually explicit, essentially every lyric that I recognized as something that I did not understand when I was a child. So if you will indulge me.
I would love to. I would gladly indulge you.
The song where they're all singing about Fantine and she gets fired from the factory and the foreman is like coming on to her in unpleasant ways.
At the end of the day.
At the end of the day, take a look at his trousers. You'll see where he stands.
It's about a hard-on.
Did not understand that. You can bet she's earning her keep sleeping around.
Yep.
No clue what that meant.
You'll feel sleeping.
You play a virgin in the light, but need no urging in the night.
She likes to fuck.
What does that mean? The entire song, Lovely Ladies, which is all of the women of the night singing about all the things they do with men and then inviting Fantine into their fold. No clue what that song was about.
Can I just say that is totally understandable? You were an innocent child.
See them with their trousers off. They're never quite as grand. I did think that was metaphorical. It was not.
No, they have tiny penises.
And then at the end, Fantine sings "Easy Money" lying on a bed. Did not know what that meant. Did not know to what that was referring. Okay, later in the song "Master of the House," Madame Thénardier sings thinks he's quite a lover, but there's not much there.
Again, tiny penis.
And then in the song "Drink with Me," witty girls who went to our beds. Did not know what they were doing there.
For cuddles and snugs.
For hugs and snugs. There's probably more, but it is just funny because it's not like me looking back now in retrospect and thinking like, I wouldn't have known what that meant. These are all lines that I remember specifically thinking, I don't know what that is referring to. I am confused. I sense the general area, so I'm like embarrassed to ask, but I don't know what that means.
And of course, you're in the car. You've got your two little brothers
two little
with
brothers,
you.
My parents.
Like, even if you ask, your parents are not going to explain it in that situation.
In that situation, no. So anyway, that's pretty much all the notes I took. This cast is so amazing, and it really is interesting. Like, something that I think. So Lea Salonga was known to Schoenberg and Boublil. They discovered her in the Philippines because they cast her as Kim, the main part in Miss Saigon, and she was like 18. I just watched a clip of her like first audition for that, like the first time she'd ever heard the music, and she just came out and sang it perfectly, and they were like, there's our star.
3 days ago, I was today years old when I found out that they also wrote Miss Saigon.
Yes. So Miss Saigon was their show after Les Mis. That was their like next big show. So it was just it's amazing that's like they did Les Mis, they wrote Les Mis. Les Mis was playing with Cameron McIntosh. They then were like, okay, we're on to our next project. We're going to write Miss Saigon. We need a lead for Miss Saigon. We're going to do like a worldwide search for this person. They found Lea Salonga in 1989 to play Kim in Miss Saigon. And then in 1995, she's Eponine in Les Mis. Also setting like a huge precedent for non-white actors playing Eponine specifically, which is very cool. We'll see this when we come to like the most recent version, but the casts have definitely gotten more racially diverse as we've gone on in time. Like, what can you say about this 10th? These performances are like, this is the classic performance.
This is the
right?
performance that's like embedded into a gold record and sent on like Voyager into other, solar systems. Like, this is the one. I'm not saying it's the best one. I'm saying I think it's the best record of what Les Mis is as a musical, because it is the people who originated the parts. Like, here's an example. If I were forced to argue that Colm Wilkinson is the best Valjean of all time,
yes,
which is not an argument I would actually spend a lot of time making. That's like it's miles from the hill I would die on.
Yeah.
Because we've seen some other people play the part who've been amazing. Like, but if I had to argue that Colm Wilkinson is Jean Valjean, Bring Him Home was written for him.
Yeah.
Bring Him Home wasn't written for anyone else.
Yeah.
Like, Bring Him Home was added to the show later after he was working on it, because he's got the range, because he's got this beautiful. It was really interesting watching it in context with Alfie Boe, because it really made me realize how much of a pop singer Colm Wilkinson is.
Yeah. As opposed to Alfie Boe, who has a very operatic tenor voice. Like, he's like Pavarotti. He has this huge voice.
Like, it's actually fun watching the show, especially in this Dreamcast, because I would say, like, who are the people who have great theater voices? I think Philip Quast, Judy Kuhn, Lea Salonga, These are great theater voices.
Yeah.
But people like Colin Wilkinson and Michael Ball,
They're more like pop singers.
they're pop singers.
Yeah.
But like the show lends itself to that.
Michael Ball won Eurovision twice.
Right? So I think that's one of the things that makes this version of the show fun, especially, which it sets the stage for Nick Jonas to play one of the characters later.
Sure.
There's nothing.
There's precedent there, is what you're saying.
There's absolute precedent. So bottom line, Bring 'Em Home was written for Colin Wilkinson. I think he owns the part in a way where everyone else is just going to say, I'm shooting for second place.
Yeah.
And I'm not even projecting that, but it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of people would say, like, no, I would love to be the second most famous Valjean of all time in the musical of Les Mis.
Yeah, and while we were watching this, I mean, I feel like the other person you really, really responded to was Ruthie Henschel as Fantine. You were just like entranced by her.
She's my ride or die.
Yeah.
She is, I think, the best person in the show. Because I haven't seen her in all the other ones. I didn't hear her on the albums. I didn't see her show up later. She does things with the character in general, but she does things with I Dreamed a Dream specifically that I haven't seen the other people do that hit me in a way that no one else does.
Well, she's able to do this kind of amazing thing with her voice that like she sounds like she's crying even though she's belting. She has a lot of control, but she can kind of still make it sound really raw, but it doesn't sound like she's gonna like fall off the stage. We're gonna get a lot into vocal technique, I think, and I think I'm gonna get myself into trouble because I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I just watch a lot of YouTube, but she just does this thing with her voice that makes she's believable that she's dying, but also you don't fear that she's hurting her voice. Does that track for you?
I mean, it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
You might have angered some people.
I don't know.
But
I'm not comparing her to anyone else. I'm just saying she's doing this thing.
No, I know. No, I'm saying angered people with your very basic interpretation of vocal technique.
Sure.
But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
No, the thing for me that she does is the line I always look for, and I feel like we could go through all the characters and do this, so maybe we shouldn't because we only have a certain amount of time.
Right.
Who am I kidding? We have as much time as we want. It's
This is
episode
our
100.
show.
Doesn't matter. I feel like all the actors have lines that I look for in different songs in different versions. So for me, the Fantine line that I look for is different from This Hell I'm Living.
Yeah.
During I Dreamed a Dream. Because the way Ruthie Henschel does it is it's raw. Like she makes her voice sound like sandpaper for a second. And it shows the level of control that she has. She doesn't break. It's kind of amazing how good her voice is in that moment. But she is communicating through beautiful, perfect singing that she is incredibly sad. So, no, Ruthie Henschel turned out to be my ride or die. It's fantastic to go back, and I'm sure everyone's had the experience doing this. You go back to something that you've watched a million times, but you watch it with a critical eye, and suddenly things are jumping out at you that never had before. So, you mentioned, you were starting to say this before, and I wanted to save it a little bit. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
If I asked you 6 months ago, what is your opinion about Michael Ball in general and in Les Misérables specifically?
I would have been like, yeah, he's fine. He's Marius. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's fine.
Like my reaction would have been, Michael Ball, yeah, he's fun.
Yeah, he's fun.
He's fine. Like the vibrato is a little much.
Yeah.
He definitely doesn't sound like anyone else playing the role.
Right.
It's not my favorite.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
He wormed
to us.
His way into our hearts.
I love Michael Ball so much now. So much now.
I downloaded like all his albums.
Well, and also we'll get to Alfie Bow in a little bit, but like they're best friends.
They're best friends.
They've done 3 or 4 albums together. I fucking love Michael Ball. Here's what happened and what I think allowed Michael Ball to become, for me, such a perfect musical interpretation of the character of Marius.
Yeah.
I didn't know that much about Marius before we started doing this show. My only experience of Marius was the musical. And Michael Ball, even though in the 10th anniversary show, he's not really the fresh-faced youngster that he was when he started doing the show 10 years before.
He's getting up there. Judy Kuhn, though, looking perfect.
Well, yeah. I always just looked at him and went like, man, I don't know. Marius, to me, I don't know if this character is as boyish and fresh-faced and rosy-cheeked and naive as kind of Michael Ball is projecting.
Yeah.
I don't know if this feels right to me. But then reading the book and watching like the good versions of it, that is Marius.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole thing about Marius is in over his head. He's just met these revolutionaries. He's being swept up in something he doesn't really understand. And now he's fallen in love for the first time.
It's a lot.
Now I'm willing to draw a line in the sand and say, I think Michael Ball is the perfect musical interpretation of the character of Marius. I don't know that there's anyone else who's nearly as good. I wouldn't even say that about Colin Wilkinson, but I'm going to say it about Michael Ball. I think he's amazing.
Yeah, he's God.
my favorite Marius of all time.
No one can touch him.
So what have we talked about Colin Wilkinson,
Yeah.
he's a weirdo. And it just struck me how weird he is. Does that weird thing where he puts the way his arms are perfectly straight with his hands splayed out whenever he sings anything. He's just
people have kind of physical tics. I think that they're like, oh well, if I don't do this, I can't hit this note. So he just does it over and over. We listened to an album of his. It was like Colin Wilkinson Does Broadway or something like that.
Stage Heroes is his solo album.
And I fear that when he's sort of off by himself doing his own thing, his taste is not amazing.
Well, talent versus taste is something we've talked about a lot.
About continuously, because some of his performances on that album are very strange. But I mean, listen, he's got a voice on him.
If he finds a role that's perfect for him, he is perfect for it. On that album, he does Man of La Mancha.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think he's perfect for that.
Yeah.
That worked for me. But some of the other ones don't work as much.
Yeah.
They don't work as well for me.
Yeah.
But he's great. Philip Quast is
just
amazing
iconic
and perfect.
Iconic.
He did a thing that I think he sold better than anyone else in the show. There's the scene with the cart. And the cart falls over. That's actually one of the things we didn't really talk about in the 10th anniversary, is that so many of the things that are more physical are being projected up on a screen
it's
behind the actors.
Clips from the actual production, because they don't have a barricade on stage, but they want to involve a barricade in some way, so they just show it up on a big screen.
Yeah. In fact, I have a couple of knocks against this production. One of them is that when they were shooting it, they actually did a really bad job of showing those things at the same time.
Yeah.
So you only see a couple of them, but the people who were in the audience were seeing all of them. And I actually think that's kind of a failing of it.
Uh-huh.
The only other knock I have against it is that, other than little flubs people make here and there, which is fine, they cut a lot from the second act.
Yeah.
I think they cut too much from the second act.
Yeah.
I think you could have added 5 or 10 minutes to the show just to flesh it out a little bit more and have the flow go a little bit better.
They cut the whole encounter between Thénardier and Marius, which is a significant plot point, and why they kind of come back around to Valjean, because it's they're at the wedding, everyone's fine, and suddenly Valjean is alone, I wait in the shadows, and we're wait, what happened?
Yeah. Don't they also cut him telling Marius who he is?
Yeah. No, it's completely cut. The whole thing is cut.
That's the 5 or 10 minutes that should have remained.
Yeah.
But they decided to cut that.
I didn't know that was in the show for the longest time.
Yeah.
Between the version we listened to in the car and this, those were my 2 ins to Les Mis.
But Philip Quast does a thing, because when the cart goes over, he says, "A memory stirs.
Memory stirs.
You make me think of a man from long ago.
From long ago.
A man who broke his
parole. A man
parole."
who broke his parole.
We've seen versions where Javert clocks Valjean immediately.
Yeah.
The second he meets him, he's like, "I know who you are." Quast does a thing here. He sells the honesty of the line, which is that a memory stirs.
A memory literally
You make
stirs.
me think of a man. He makes me believe that up until that moment he didn't make the connection, and now suddenly he did.
I have only known one other who can do what you have done. He's a convict from the chain gang. He's been 10 years on the run. I like that line.
No, it's great.
Yeah, it's great.
Sweet. I would love to keep going
Let's
with
keep
you.
singing.
But we have a show to do. So he's amazing. To the Thénardiers.
Yeah.
Are Alan Armstrong. This was his role.
Oh yeah. It's this and a bunch of Dickens adaptations.
Just incredible. There's not a lot I have to say about Alan Armstrong, because he's just kind of basic and fantastic.
Well, it's hard to talk about him in a vacuum too, because I think one of the things that we found valuable in the musical was the chemistry between the two Thénardiers, because they are the comic relief of the show.
Yeah.
There's no question there that they are not nearly as scary as they are in some versions. They're pretty funny. They're pretty goofy. Madame Thénardier is very funny. They get a whole big song, Master of the House, where they sing together, which frankly does not advance the plot even a little.
No.
It's just a fun song.
It's an I Am song.
Yeah. But what's her name? Jenny Galloway?
Jenny Galloway.
Yeah, they're just amazing together. She came back for the 25th. Talk about someone this is her role. You know what I mean? Alan Armstrong, this is his role. This is her role. She originated this role, and or she didn't originate it, but it's her claim to fame.
Yeah, I feel like this is the thing with the Thénardiers, that you can go too far with them, and I think you can be too shticky. I think it's a hard needle to thread. You want to be threatening and you want to be villainous, but you also want to be fun, but you don't want to be too shticky, because then you're not scary anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is one of those ones where I could actually get into it. I do think they do a better job than anyone else I've seen do it.
Yeah.
I think other people we've seen push it too far.
Yeah.
And in one of those two directions. And I think they are kind of that perfect middle ground for what makes the characters work in the context of a musical.
Yeah. But I also appreciate like someone being cast in this role and kind of wanting to make it their own. Like
Sure.
if you're cast in like a really broadly comic role like this, you don't want to just do the same things that like your predecessor has done.
I think it's super fair.
Yeah.
Judy Kuhn, we've talked about a little bit. She's kind of impeccable.
Yeah.
There's nothing bad to say about her at all.
Pretty soprano singing a pretty song.
Michael Ball, we're in love with now. Leah Salonga is kind of perfect as Eponine.
Like literally two Disney three two actors, three Disney princesses amongst them singing their hearts out.
And I think it's important for us to talk about just how good Leah Salonga is as Eponine now, because she's going to come up again later as Fantine.
Yeah.
And she'll be one of a couple of examples of someone coming back to play an older role later. But I think we need to kind of dig in a little bit about whether it works that well or not, which I just want to plant that seed now.
Yeah, and it is interesting because we'll talk about this as we go, but like it's definitely the kind of thing where it's like Cameron McIntosh is in charge of all of these productions, and it's like, well, once you're in the Les Mis family, like you're in for life. Like they're gonna bring you back. They'll bring you back in different roles.
Unless you're Patty and you don't want to.
Unless you're Patty and you don't want to, or maybe was difficult to work with.
She could just show up and say, "I want to be Valjean."
They'd be like, "Yeah,
okay,
go for it, Patty."
Cameron would be like, "You know what?
I like that interpretation.
That'll sell tickets."
Yeah.
No, he wouldn't say he liked that interpretation. He would say that would sell tickets.
That'll sell.
And that's enough for me.
That'll do, Patty. That'll do.
Because I'm Cameron McIntosh.
Yeah. And I mean, the other thing about this too is like, when you actually listen to it, they have something that you couldn't get in your everyday like 8 shows a week performance, which is they have this huge full orchestra and this huge chorus. So the choral songs sound amazing. Like not just, do you hear the people sing One Day More, but even like Look Down, Lovely Ladies, like all the songs that have any kind of choral element, they have this enormous chorus to back up the main singers.
Yeah. I feel like this show specifically, if I had to call out like the 3 biggest things that make it, for me, the best recording of the show, one is Colin Wilkinson, who I think is, I think it's a perfect match of actor and role. 2 is the chorus. And 3 is the venue. Because they did it at the Royal Albert Hall, I think the acoustics were kind of perfect for the show.
Yeah.
And it sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Like just as a pure recording, I think it sounds incredible and sounds really full. And I think it sounds the way you remember Les Mis sounding, even though if you listen back to like the Broadway recording or the West End recording, there's synthesizers and the cast isn't as big, but it sounds the way you remember it.
Yeah.
And I think there's no way we can end talking about the 10th anniversary without talking about how the whole thing ends.
Yeah, this is your reward for getting through all 3 hours of this version is you get this amazing finale.
All of the Valjeans from all over the world come out and they sing, do you hear the people sing?
In their language.
In their own native languages. And it's amazing and I love it. And it is notable for 2 reasons. One is everything I have just said, which is not a thing you would ever get to hear in the show.
2.
But 2, Japan's Valjean is Takeshi Kaga. Is there anything else that people might know Takeshi Kaga from?
Oh, he's only the chairman from fucking Iron Chef.
Like, this man can do, according to my experience, this man can do one of 2 things perfectly. 1, bite a pepper, and 2, sing. Do you hear the people sing in Japanese? This man is a fucking powerhouse. God. It's amazing.
It's amazing. It's so good.
It's such a good show. It's such a good performance. It's so beautifully 1995 and in all the best ways. And I love it so much.
Yeah.
Do you want to skip ahead a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
So we're going to go ahead 15 years because if the 10th anniversary show is 1995, we got 25th anniversary show in 2010.
Yeah.
And not much else happened. I talked about the revivals and going on and off Broadway, all this different stuff.
It opened to close. They did a smaller version. They did a bigger version. All these shows.
In the 15 intervening years, it's been seen by millions more people all around the world. So Cameron McIntosh said, well, you know what? I think it can make even more money. So let's do another concert. We're going to do another concert. We're going to tape it again. It played for a few nights. I don't know, maybe just for the one night.
Well, it was at the O2, so I think it was just the one night.
Yeah. So it was at the O2. Directed by Nick Morris, stage direction by Lawrence Connor and James Powell. There are some people we've seen before. There are some new faces as well. Let me mention a couple of people that we have seen before.
Yeah.
Jenny Galloway comes back as Madame Thénardier, playing the exact same role.
Her signature role.
Leah Salonga comes back, this time as Fantine, which we'll get into in a little bit. And there is, I mean, we'll skip to the end a little bit. There is a big thing at the end where, they were like, well, how can we top 17 different Valjeans from all over the world? Here's what we'll do. We'll have the entire original Barbican cast, the entire original West End cast, the entire original Broadway cast. We're going to bring them all out together at the end, and everyone's going to sing. It's going to be a giant thing. Colin Wilkinson is going to be there. It's going to be huge.
Huge. They'll also bring him home. It's amazing.
But we get all these new people, people who have played, we've multiple Valjeans in it. Like Ramin Karimloo plays Enjolras.
Yes.
But he's played Valjean on stage as well.
Yeah. Very famously played Phantom of the Opera. He's a big dude.
But I feel like we should start with the biggest guy.
Yes.
We got to start with Alfie Boe.
Yes. Or the littlest guy, depending on your perspective.
Well, that's the thing.
He's very wee.
He's a little wee.
He's adorable. No,
Colin
he's adorable.
Wilkinson is a little
they're
wee
both
too.
Wee. They're quite wee.
You're bringing up something that I think is really important to talk about right now, because when we were looking at all of these different versions of Les Mis, the thing that was so clear from the book is that Valjean is big.
Yeah.
He's a huge, imposing man. And if you want to do that in a dramatic context, you kind of have to cast someone who's going to be physically imposing in some way.
Mm-hmm.
So you could go in a couple of different directions with that. You could do Liam Neeson. Liam Neeson big.
Yeah.
Or the way the anime did it, where he's physically huge and strong.
Gerard Depardieu.
You could go the Gerard Depardieu or the Harry Bauer route and just, he's a big guy.
He's a big dude.
And you know what? He's kind of big in a different way, but he still could be really strong.
But in a musical, you can do it vocally.
Exactly. Frederick March, for me, does not work as Jean Valjean.
Yeah.
He's a wee, beautiful man. But if he could sing, and that was a sung role, you do it through song.
Yeah.
And this was a thing that never hit me. But I love the fact that Valjean is this 20-year convict, incredibly strong character, but he's a tenor.
He's a tenor.
He's a tenor. He's got the most beautiful voice you've ever heard, because that's what's in his soul.
Yes, it's the voice of God.
And he's got an incredibly powerful voice.
Yes.
That's the thing about Valjean.
Yeah, well, and the interesting thing about Alfie Boe that I think I didn't realize until we saw this, I guess I assumed, he's the new Valjean. He's who's currently playing Valjean. No, he had never played Valjean until this. He went on to play him on stage, but he is an operatic tenor. He was touring in opera. He had never really done a lot of musical theater. He certainly hadn't played Valjean, and his vocal style is so different from Colin Wilkinson. I think probably the biggest difference.
Mm-hmm.
And I can definitely see where someone would come down on one side or the other, just what they prefer, because he does have this very distinctive, very operatic style. I loved it. I thought I think it's great.
So this is one of those things where I had seen a little bit of the 25th anniversary show because my mom really likes it, and I go back to my mom. There's no way I can talk about Les Mis without talking about my mom.
That's right. It's fine.
That's okay. Lois Latour is a saint. So
I'm glad you said it.
she really got into it, and I watched a few minutes of it, and I was like, this guy, the parts that I heard him sing were more of the recitative parts, and he didn't do it for me. When I saw those moments, when I was just seeing little bits and pieces of the show. I like the way that Colin Wilkinson did it, because he does it in a more poppy kind of style. But I didn't see him do Who Am I?
Yeah.
Okay? So then we watched it, and we watched him do Who Am I?
I wrote down your exact quote.
What was my exact quote?
You sort of you were in silence for a minute, and you kind of went, that's... Jesus Christ.
It's a heck of a thing.
Yeah.
It's a heck of a thing to watch this man do Who Am I? And also Bring Him Home and other songs from the show. He is a true tenor.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the beautiful soft tenor that Colin Wilkinson has.
Yeah.
He's got the power. This is a powerful tenor. So he does the best thing I can compare it to is it's this amazing. Have you ever seen a snake eat an egg? Have you ever seen a snake actually? Because you hear about snakes unhinging their jaw.
What are you talking about?
Just go with me for a second.
What are you talking about?
You hear about a snake unhinging its jaw to eat mice and rats and eggs and things like that. But have you ever actually watched them do it? It's different than hearing about it. You look at it and you're like, there's no way that this animal can be making its head contort into this shape. Alfie Boe opens his mouth at the end, when he sings 24601 at the end of Who Am I, he does a thing with his face that only a true operatic tenor can do with their face.
Okay.
It's not a thing that Colin Wilkinson does at all. it's there's just so much goddamn power in his voice.
Yeah.
And in the span of 3 minutes, I was sold.
Yeah.
I kind of loved him
Yeah.
in this. I'm not gonna lie. I have not come here to convince anyone that Alfie Boe is not good at playing Valjean.
No.
Colin Wilkinson is still my favorite, but holy shit, Alfie Boe's pretty fucking great too.
Yeah, he's great. We've also got going from sort of the opera guy to musical theater guy. We've got Norm Lewis as Javert. I think he's so good. He's just like, it's such a good part for him. It's such a good part for his voice. He has that like power, like just the physicality. He's so tall and like he just sounds great. Like he sounds so good. Like I don't know how to describe how I love Javert. So I love almost
He's
anyone.
the greatest part in all of musical theater.
Yeah. I mean, I did appreciate that they actually did some more of the plot in this version. So like there was actually a transition into Stars where it's like, oh my God, this guy is here. Now I have to sing the song Stars instead of just Javert kind of like wandering out, singing a song and like wandering back away with no connection to the plot. I guess the one thing maybe slightly lacking chemistry between the two of them.
That was my problem.
Yeah, I'm not sure the two of them gelled. I think both performances are really, really great in a vacuum, but I'm not sure that how much I love the two of them together. Not even for anything about their voice, just sort of a chemistry thing, I think.
For me, it was kind of a voice thing.
Yeah.
Like, we talk about it with other things where like tone is something really important that you need to manage when you're doing anything. And I just think they felt like they were in two different performances.
Yeah.
Like a little, like a tiny bit. A tiny bit.
Like, again, all of this is so nitpicky because they're both amazing.
Yeah, like I don't have a mean thing to say about Norm Lewis at all, but like
Yeah.
I don't know that they gelled. Here's what it is. I'm just going to be really honest about my blind spot and my failing as a viewer.
Okay.
It takes me out of it when, and this is true for the 10th anniversary one as well, but it wasn't Javert and Valjean. It takes me out of it when you have really strong American accents singing along with really strong British accents.
Sure.
That it just takes me out of it a little bit, which is why like one of the things I love about the 10th anniversary one is that Angel Ross is the most American guy you can possibly imagine,
right? Singing
next to Michael Ball, and like they should not be singing together in the same production.
Yeah.
And I find the flaw, I find it endearing in the 10th anniversary one because it's Angel Ross. Like I don't care as much about Angel Ross, but I really need Valjean and Javert to sound like they're of a piece.
Yeah.
And Alfie Boe and Norm Lewis weren't doing it for me.
Gotcha.
But again, like I have nothing bad to say about either of their performances. They're both fantastic.
Yeah.
So Nick Jonas is in it, but we can move on. We don't really need to talk about Nick Jonas.
I think Nick Jonas. You had some beef with Nick Jonas.
A bit.
I pointed out to you that Nick Jonas is a legit musical theater actor and he played Gavroche in the run up to the closing of Les Mis on Broadway. He was the last Gavroche on Broadway. And we saw a little documentary clip that said that like Cameron McIntosh tells the story. He's like, well, I don't remember saying this, but his dad told me this story that he like at the closing night party, he apparently said to like little baby Nick Jonas, you must come back and see us for Marius when you're older. And sure enough, he did. And like they were able to work it with his concert schedule that he came out. I mean, I guess one of the only things I would say about Nick Jonas is he did not have the lyrics down and was very clearly reading from a prompter.
That was part of it.
So that like it made it a little hard for him, I think, to connect organically with Cosette when he couldn't look at her because he was reading the lines off a prompter. I believe is what was happening. You sort of could see his eyes like going back and forth doing the typewriter thing. So I do think that's what was happening. But like as far as the style of his voice, like Marius should sound like he's in a boy band. Sure he should. Why not? Why the hell not?
So that I can't argue with.
Yeah.
Here's my problem with Nick Jonas, other than what you've already stated.
Yeah.
The problem that I had is that the style of his voice in a vacuum, I don't have a problem with. My problem is I think he was just outclassed.
Yeah, you put him up against Alfie Boe and he's just going to like literally fall down.
Well, we haven't even talked about Katie Hall as Cosette, who she walked on stage and like I didn't know what to expect with her. She's got such an amazing voice. She's incredible.
She sounds like a Disney princess.
She did things that I did not expect, and she made me feel things that I did not expect emotionally. Like she was beautiful. Her voice is incredible. And there's that song near the end where it's after the barricade and what's the reprise of Heart Full of Love.
Yeah.
But now it's Valjean doing the Eponine part.
Yeah.
And you've got Nick Jonas standing between Katie Hall and Alfie Boe, and he's doing his best, but he is getting lost in this performance.
Yeah.
They are running circles around him, and they're not doing it intentionally, but he's not rising to their level. And that's not really a knock against him because very few people could.
Yeah.
I certainly fucking couldn't. Most people couldn't.
Yeah.
But he can't.
Yeah.
And that just stuck out to me. And that happens a number of times through the show.
Sure.
So he's Nick Jonas. I got no beef with Nick Jonas. It's
Yeah,
totally
Nick
fine.
Jonas.
But he's not Michael Ball. That's all I'm saying.
Well, as long as we're dunking on people.
Who do you want to dunk on?
I feel like this is going to be the most controversial thing I've ever said on this show. I don't think Lea Salonga did a very good job as Fontaine.
She didn't do a very good job as Fontaine.
And I'll tell you why. Let me give her the benefit of the doubt and say maybe she was sick.
So, there was someone in the show who was definitely sick.
Yeah.
If you recall.
Oh, yeah. There was one of the
women in the factory.
One of the women in the factory. And we were like, why didn't they just recast that part? She sounds like she's really in pain. Like she sounded like she was struggling so hard. Like she was clearly sick. Like it wasn't like, oh, they cast someone in this role that can't sing. Like she was obviously sick. So we felt bad for this woman. But Lea Salonga, and I feel bad saying this because I feel like this is where I feel like I'm wandering over my head into stuff about vocal technique that someone is going to correct me. But it seemed to me, I don't want to make any statements about what Lea Salonga is or isn't. So I'm just going to say what I perceived.
Say what you must, don't leave it there.
It seemed to me that Lea Salonga was having a lot of trouble with the really belty songs and sounded amazing on the more legit soprano parts of Fontaine's role. So, for example, the song is literally, we just had to pause for a second to determine the title of the song. It's called Fontaine's Death.
Well, of course.
But it's come to me 'cause that the light is fading. This very beautiful, beautiful melody. She sounded amazing.
Well, when she gets to the end of it, she goes, I'll see you when I wake.
Yeah.
And it goes up so high. I think you said this, her voice is sparkling.
Yeah. She sounds beautiful. Tinkling bells. Just pure, legit Disney princess voice. I dreamed a dream. She really sounded like she was struggling, and a lot of this, the stuff in the factory, and Lovely Ladies, the parts where we were saying Ruthie Henschel did such an amazing job of sounding rough but still having a lot of control. She sounded
and
power. She sounded rough, but she sounded like she didn't have control over it. And my guess is that was uncomfortable for her in her voice and in her range. That's my guess. I would love for someone who knows more about vocal performance to tell me yes or no. But that's what it sounded like to me, because she did sound so amazing in other songs that were in sort of a different style and in a different place in her voice. Does that make sense?
It does. I think this is the dangerous thing about any show where you do a show for years and you think, I'm going to bring people back to play another role.
Yeah.
Well, Lea Salonga is not going to come back and play Eponine again.
Yeah.
But not every person can just jump into a different role in the same show.
Yeah.
Because I'm also going to kind of talk outside my comfort zone a little bit. This show is musically perfect. It is a really, really perfectly done show. I think they developed it for so many years, written in 1980. They worked on it for years before it premiered in the West End. This is a show that was tested time and time again. What they crafted, as a musical expression of the story in Victor Hugo's book, I think it's pretty perfect. The decisions they made, I think, stand on their own, and they made decisions about the range of the characters.
Yeah.
And who should sing those parts. So Valjean is a tenor. So if you have Valjean, who is a tenor, and that actor wants to come back years later and play a different character, if you mismatch them with, a character who's in a different range, yeah, it's exciting to see them do it, but it's not going to work as well. They're not going to be as good as someone else who's actually in that range.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. And it's not even for women's voice, it's not even necessarily soprano versus alto. It's belter versus non-belter.
Sure.
You're not necessarily a belter. And I for women, you have your head voice, your chest voice, and then your mix, which is sort of right in the middle. And I feel that's the part where Lea Salonga was struggling. Again, I don't know anything about this. I just watch a lot of YouTube videos about vocal performance. So correct me if I'm wrong. But that's where I feel like she was struggling, was on those big belting, songs.
But then, as you say, Fantine's death is gorgeous.
It's beautiful.
It's one of the best musical moments in the show.
But that's the thing that makes me think she wasn't sick, because she sounded great.
Mm-hmm. I feel like we've been talking about Eponine. Let's move on to Samantha Barks for a second.
Yeah.
I feel like there are a lot of Samantha Barks stands out there.
Yeah.
And
Jeremy's one of them.
100% deserved. She's incredible.
Yeah.
I honestly feel like we could probably wait to talk about her when we talk about the movie.
Sure. I will just say, like, Samantha Barks came to national attention. She was 17. She was in a televised competition to win the role of Nancy in Oliver. She came in third. But went on to, she did play Nancy in Oliver, even though she wasn't the winner of that show, but then leveraged that into playing Eponine in Les Mis. So she had played the role on stage before.
Yeah.
We'll come back to her. And Matt Lucas as Thénardier, which, like, I think, because he had never played it in the full production, he, like Alfie Boe, was cast just for this and then went on to play the role, like, in an actual production. And I think, like, maybe they thought it was stunt casting, but he did a great job. Like, I think he was really fun, and I think he took it really seriously, which, again, maybe we'll talk about when we come to the movie about some casting choices there. But, like, I think he took it seriously as a singer and an actor, and wasn't just coming in as, like, oh, I'm a comedian, I'm Matt Lucas, I'm going to do my Matt Lucas thing.
He did a bit.
A bit, but I do think he took the singing seriously.
I agreed. 100%. I totally agree. One of the things that I liked about Alan M. Armstrong in the role is that it was musically confident.
Yeah.
And I want to say this, and then I'm going to give some context for it. I think it was pretty clear to me that Matt Lucas wasn't as confident in this performance.
Yeah.
The context is, of course that's fair, because he'd never done it before, and it's at the O2.
Yeah.
Like, that's fair. I have no problem with that. I don't blame him at all. But he did... I think in the moments, there were moments where he could have pulled it back just a little bit and let the show carry him.
Mm-hmm.
He injected things.
Yeah.
And he injected jokes and moments that any one of them on their own, I think were kind of funny. I think they added up to be a little too much for me.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little bit in this one.
Yeah.
It ended up being way more later.
Yeah.
In the most recent production, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. Well, just to sort of sidebar off of what you just said.
Sidebar to my sidebar.
Sidebar to your sidebar. It was funny because when Alfie Boe was kind of queuing up to do Bring Him Home, he sort of does this thing where he kind of, like, bows his head and he closes his eyes and he takes a deep breath. And you said to me, as we were watching, he's saying to himself, like, don't fuck this up, Alfie, don't fuck this up.
Yeah.
And at the time I said to you, he's done this 8 shows a week. What are you talking about? Of course he knows he can do it. But I didn't realize he hadn't played the part in a production before. Mm-hmm. So going back and looking at it again, it's like, oh yeah, he's thinking, don't fuck this up, Alfie, don't fuck this up. I think one of the things that Matt Lucas, like the casting of Matt Lucas, does for this role in particular, so there are a couple of lyrics in Les Mis that don't age super well.
Yeah.
Like, not a ton, but a couple. And one of them is the line in the song Beggars at the Feast, this one's a queer, but what can you do? Which, in the context of Thénardier singing that line, he's actually being very accepting of, like, well, what can you do? But, like, having Matt Lucas, a gay man, sing that line, I really appreciated it, and I thought brought some depth, and because he was doing it with, like, a little bit of a wink to the audience, right? Like, they know who he is, right?
Yeah.
And I actually thought I thought that was great. Mm-hmm. I actually really liked that. Like, that's a way to modernize that type of lyric that could be, like, a little bit embarrassing or cringy, in 2020 or whenever this was performed, versus, like, when it was written in 1980. And I think that's a nice way to bring it into the modern day.
Mm-hmm. I only have a couple other things to say about this one before we move on to the movie. I don't know how much more you have.
Yeah, let's do it.
I still prefer, personally, the 10th anniversary show, but I'm going to give some reasons why I would not argue with anyone who prefers the 25th as just a production. One, it's just staged better. It's staged more intentionally. I think they took more time to make it a story experience
Yeah.
than the 10th anniversary show.
They have more of the interstitial quote unquote dialogue, the recitative,
Yeah.
and they did some cool stuff with how like dead characters like enter and leave the stage.
Yeah.
They've got this big door at the back that's like backlit so people come and go. They did a cool thing with the during empty chairs and empty tables where the dead friends all come and like kind of flock around sweet little Nick Jonas.
Which I think is in the show.
It is in the show. Yeah.
But they didn't do it in the 10th anniversary show.
But like because they didn't have all of the main characters just sort of sitting in chairs behind the people who were singing, they were able to do a little bit more with the staging.
Yeah. It's a very different feel. This feels more like a show, whereas the 10th anniversary feels more like it's a song circle.
Yeah.
You know? Like we're all going to get together on a Friday night and sing.
Which is something like my friends and I totally would have done in high school. Like, let's get together and sing Les Mis from beginning to end.
Right. So it's a different kind of thing. So I think it's staged better. It does have more of the show. It's a more complete experience watching Les Mis than the 10th anniversary show. So that's the stuff that I think it absolutely has going for it. It's got Alfie Boe. Like he's incredible. There are so many good things to say about this show. One thing that I think is my big knock against it, now that we have some distance from it, I don't think it sounds very good. And I think it's because it's in the O2.
Yeah.
I think like a theater or the Royal Albert Hall is kind of perfect acoustically for the show that they're doing. I just think everyone gets lost in the O2. Like they have that big chorus. It just sounds kind of thin to me.
It doesn't sound as amazing as the 10th anniversary, and like, you know, Royal Albert Hall, like famously, like I feel like acoustic's best in the world.
Sure.
So, you know, how are you going to compete with that?
I just think that like when I watch this show, I think to myself, what I'm experiencing now, of course it's not as good as the people who were there. I feel that way anytime I watch a recording of a show. This one, though, it's really pronounced.
Yeah.
Like I think this is clearly a show you needed to be there for. And the recording, you are watching a watered down version of it.
Yeah.
And I think some people fill the space and I think some people don't. Like I think Alfie Boe fills the space. I don't think Leah Salonga does. You know, we were talking about I Dream to Dream. And then I just have one last thing to say about this. Michael Ball's the happiest man in the world. He's just,
they bring him all on at the end, and he's just so happy to be there.
And I just imagine someone yelling out to Michael Ball, "Michael, you're happy to be here," and he just says, "Happy to be anywhere." He just looks so delighted to be with all of these people.
He's the dimpliest man in the world, and he's just so happy to be with my friends. He's so happy.
And like to be clear, they all look happy. Like Colin Wilkinson looks happy to be there, but no one looks as happy as Michael Ball does. I love this man. He's so adorable.
And he's not even in the play. Like he just comes out at the end to like sing a tune with some of the other, you know, old cast members.
It's a heck of a performance.
It's a heck of a thing. It is funny. We were watching a little bit of a documentary that was made like around this time, and they had Frances Ruffelle, who was the original Eponine both on the West End and on Broadway, and who was talking about. She's like, I won the Tony Award.
She was married to John Caird, who directed it.
But it was just funny because I definitely got the sense that she was like wanted to be very clear that although this happened 25 years ago, she was very young at the time. So it's still a young person, generally speaking, in relation to other people.
She makes it very clear.
She makes it very clear.
I think last thing we can say about it is that one of the things that is called out in this production is that they're making a movie.
Yeah.
Finally, a movie is being made of Les Mis.
They call it out. They're so happy.
And then 2 years later, it came out. So I saw this movie in the theater.
Mm-hmm.
Guess who I saw it with?
Your mom.
Of course I did. We used to go see movies every Christmas together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm at the height of loving Les Mis. There's no way I wasn't going to see this.
Yeah.
And we saw it. And you know what?
Yeah.
I kind of liked it.
Uh-huh.
I liked it. Some parts of it, I felt like I might have been taking crazy pills for, but I kind of walked out feeling like, no, that was good.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? What wasn't it? I was looking around at everybody going like, wasn't that good? I mean, it's Les Mis movie, musical. Been waiting years for this. It was good, right? And I hadn't watched it since.
Mm-hmm.
But my opinion on it has evolved a bit.
Yeah.
What is your experience with this movie?
So I hadn't seen it, which is you might think is funny because I love Les Mis from way back.
Mm-hmm.
But I have this thing that like sometimes when I really, really like something and I'm really excited about, like I can't watch it, you know? Like I don't know if I'm alone in this. Like I just can't handle it. So
Can I
like
give everyone an example?
Sure.
Anyone ever remember that movie Mr. Holmes where Ian McKellen plays Sherlock Holmes?
Haven't seen it.
Literally two of your favorite things in the world.
I also haven't watched Picard. Sometimes when something is, I don't know. I don't know what that's about. I don't know. I may be alone in this. Sometimes I'm like so excited about something that I literally just can't.
And so
Anyway.
you never watched this.
So I never watched it. And for years, you spent years telling me how bad this movie is. Years. And
not like directly. I don't think I ever told you this is a bad movie.
You know, you did. Like you have.
I never said it was bad. I kind of prepared you. I tried to prepare you for what the experience was going to be of watching it. And I tried to prepare you for some of the deficiencies that it has.
Sure.
But I don't think I ever came out right and said, "Oh, sweet, I hate that movie."
No, okay. I'm not.
Do you disagree?
I disagree.
Okay. That's
Listen,
fair enough.
I don't want to
That's fair enough.
contradict you, but in my head, every time this movie would come up, I would think, you're being like, God, he's being really shitty. Like, he's being so picky. Like, it can't be bad. It's Les Mis. And we were like, I don't know, half an hour or something into this movie. And I looked at you and you were like, you thought I was being shitty, didn't you? Every time we talked about it, you thought I was being shitty, didn't you? And I was like, yeah, I did think that. And you were like, what do you think now? And I was like, this movie's really bad. I'm sorry. It's not.
It's hard to talk about, right?
It's hard to talk about because I feel like anyone listening to this, rightly so, might have the same reaction that I did, which is, it's Les Mis, though. How could Les Mis be bad?
Yeah. I know people who love this movie.
It's really hard to watch, and when you learn more, as we did, about sort of how it was made, it actually becomes kind of upsetting to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it kind of is like watching people being tortured in real time on camera and then expecting to have a good experience watching that.
Yeah. This is my feeling on it.
Okay. Well, and we'll get into why that is in a minute.
I think I can break down what my big criticism is of this movie in 4 words. This breaks the show.
Mm-hmm.
It breaks it. It breaks Les Mis. It takes Les Mis and it was trying to carry it, and it dropped Les Mis, and it broke Les Mis.
Yeah.
Because Les Mis, I was talking about this before, Les Mis works. Les Mis works really, really well. It was developed over years to be something that just fucking works. And millions of people around the world would agree that Les Mis works.
Yeah.
I don't think this movie works. So they took something that works and they broke it, and they turned it into something that doesn't.
Yeah.
For many reasons we'll get into.
Yeah. I think there are a couple of important things to know about how the movie was made, maybe before we begin.
Yeah. Like going through the plot. Yeah.
It was directed by a gentleman named Tom Hooper, who also directed Cats recently.
Yeah. But he hadn't done Cats at this point.
But he hadn't done Cats at this point.
You know what he did right before this?
What did he do?
The King's Speech.
Sure. Yeah, which is famously not a musical.
Also, but famously beloved.
Yeah.
And people really like that movie.
It was okay. It was pretty good.
It was pretty okay.
It was pretty okay. So I guess my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that Cameron Mackintosh for years had been looking for like the right person to do the movie of Les Mis, and he didn't want to do it unless it was going to be right, and he wanted someone who was going to come to it with a point of view. And here comes Tom Hooper saying, you know what I'm going to do? Because, you know, this is based on a theater play. And of course, theater is live. And we don't want to have all the emotion of these songs coming to us through how you would normally record singing or a lot of audio, frankly, in a movie.
Well, we'll get to that.
Yeah. We're gonna record all the singing live. That's what he said. We're gonna record it live on set because it'll be more natural and better for reasons.
Which, quote unquote, no one had ever done before.
Which, quote unquote, no one had ever done
Which
before.
is not true.
Which, yeah.
But that's what he said.
And also, like, sidebar, like his whole thing about, like, how much more natural it is and, like, you know, how much more intense it can be. Like, and then watching the sort of making of, showing all of the things that they had to do to enable this live singing on set. Like, nothing could have been less natural. They all had to wear earpieces in their ears, listening to a piano player who was playing live from inside a glass box so that the microphones couldn't pick up the sound of the piano, singing basically into a void with just this tinkling music in their ear. and then the orchestra had to record later and match the live performances that they captured on the day. They had to do all of this crazy stuff so that the microphone didn't pick up any sounds of like rain or feet or clothing. Like it's so nuts. And then apparently, according to these like interviews that the actors were giving in the press junkets or whatever, every time they sang the song, they had to do it the whole song, like all the way through. They didn't cut, and they didn't like just sing portions of it. Like Anne Hathaway was on set singing I Dreamed a Dream for 8 hours straight, and then they went with the first take that she did when she was fresh. And when she told this story, she kind of laughed. And I was like, so basically he tortured her for 8 hours and then just did the one that he just used the take that he could have used at the beginning. And it's like, of course you use the first take, because people don't, we watched a whole YouTube video about this, but it's like,
I'm going to link to it if anyone knows the channel Sideways on YouTube, which I'm a very big fan of it. And he goes into great detail kind of pulling apart this movie. It's worth watching.
Like the links that one of the things that he talks about, and I don't want to take credit from him because like this was a point that I hadn't like necessarily considered before I watched this video, but like he talks about the lengths that professional singers go to save their voices so they can do the one big performance on the night. He's like, yeah, people don't talk sometimes for 2 days so that then they can go out and sing and do this one performance. Like if you said to a singer, oh, by the way, you're going to sing at full volume, at full voice for 8 hours straight, day after day after day, they would be like, no, of course I'm not going to do that. And one of the things he said in the video is like, it's a miracle that no one was actually hurt by the way that they were going about this. Hugh Jackman apparently like went on a water fast for 36 hours so he would look like dehydrated. And like, one of the things he talks about in this video is like, you cannot imagine the amount of water that singers drink, like on a day of a performance. Like you have to be hydrated. And he's like, I can't imagine anything worse for the voice than not drinking water for a day. Like, and it just made me so uncomfortable to hear the actors talking about this sort of in a lighthearted way. Like, yeah, I didn't drink water for 36 hours so I could be more realistic on camera. Anyway, so
Can I respond to any of that?
Yeah, of course you can. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So I want to talk about the actors talking about this.
Yeah.
Because this was the part that really disturbed me, because watching them talk about this movie right around when it was being made feels to me like people talking about being in an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
But talking about how much they love their partner.
Yeah.
Because these people are being actively hurt.
Yes.
They're being actively abused. And I don't want to...
They're being harmed. They're being physically harmed.
Their careers are being jeopardized for something that is incredibly wrongheaded. But they're all talking about it like it's brilliant.
Yeah.
They're talking about it like they're lucky to be a part of it. And it hurts me.
Yeah.
Like, it hurts me to watch them do this. I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, we watched an interview with Anne Hathaway where she was like, and she had to say this with a smile on her face. She was like, yeah, he had me lose like kind of a lot of weight.
Too much.
And then she kind of goes, you know, it was really too much weight, you know, in a really short period of time. And I was really sick. Like, it took me a long time for my body to recover after that. It's like, Jesus Christ. Like, it's a movie. Don't have people hurt themselves, you know? And I said to you, like, you know, I've directed things before, not at a professional, like, Hugh Jackman level, but I've directed things before. And one of the things I always talk to my actors about, and a lot of times I'm directing student actors too, so it's even more important, like, hey, everyone needs to be safe, like physically safe, emotionally safe. You know, you're doing this for fun, right? Obviously, in this case, it's their jobs, but I was just imagining how I would feel if an actor came to me and said, like, I'm going to go without water for 36 hours so that I can
no, you're fucking not.
Do X, Y, and Z. And I would say to them, if you do that, you're not in the movie. Like, you know, like, no, you are not going to, of course you're not going to do that. I just can't imagine the mindset that I'm, you know, I'm no Tom Hooper, but I just can't imagine the mindset I would have to be in to have someone come to me and say, I'm going to do this incredibly dangerous thing to be in your movie, to give the performance that I think you want me to give, and go, oh yeah, that sounds good. You know, that sounds great.
Yeah, like, I mean, I think it says a lot about kind of what actors bring to the table, because one of the things they bring to the table is they have to bring trust. They have to trust the director. They have to trust the producers. They have to trust that what they're doing. Because when you're an actor in a show, you have a pretty good idea whether the show is working or not.
Yeah.
Because it's happening live. It's happening there. You're seeing all of the pieces. You're there. Like no one, if the show's bad and someone afterwards says to you, "Oh, it was so good." If the show is actually bad, do you believe them?
No.
No, because you know.
Yeah, no.
But
I've just a quick sidebar. I just I just remember going to see a friend of mine in something, and it was so bad.
Because sometimes theater's bad.
Bad. And I saw her afterwards, and she was like, "So what did you think?" And I was like, "You were really good." And she's like, "Yeah, I know. It was garbage." Yeah, like she knew.
Everyone knows. But the thing about a movie is that you don't know.
Yeah.
You're putting a lot of trust in the people around you because you're just showing up and giving your performance. The movie hasn't happened yet. The movie doesn't happen until you see it.
Yeah.
So I feel bad for these people because I'm sure I don't think these are dumb people. They had to have seen it. They had to have seen what they sounded like and what they looked like. I think Anne Hathaway wanted an Oscar.
Yeah.
And she got her Oscar.
Good.
It worked. She won an Oscar for this role.
Yeah.
I think her acting is great.
Yeah.
I believed her as an actor. But the problem is the singing. But we'll get to
that in a second.
the basic problem of it. I don't blame any of the actors for not being aware of what the movie was actually going to feel like when it was done, and talking really positively about it while they were making it.
Yeah.
Because they had to talk positively about a thing that either they believed in or they didn't believe in.
Yeah.
But they still have to talk positively about it because they're still making it.
Yeah.
And you don't talk shit about a movie you're currently making.
Yeah.
But everything they said, every interview we heard about how good it was and how proud they were of the method, all of that happened before the movie was finished.
Right.
So now we have this finished movie to look at, and I guess when do you want to get to like what the purpose of musical theater is? Like the purpose of music in musical theater. Do you want to save that a little bit?
Let's save it for a minute because I really do want to walk through this kind of chronologically, and I feel like despite our best efforts, we've gotten ahead of ourselves. And I do want to point out that we were talking a minute ago about this YouTube video that we're going to link to. All of the notes that I took were before we watched that video. So I felt, if you've seen the video that I mean, I felt really vindicated because he said a lot of the same things, but I'm not, as we go through and talk about this, I swear I'm not purely just cribbing from that YouTube criticism, because I was saying the exact same things as we were writing this down. I felt that it was important for you to know that, I guess. Okay.
Should I say who's in this?
Yeah, let's start with that.
Okay, if you haven't seen it, Hugh Jackman plays Jean Valjean, Russell Crowe plays Javert, Anne Hathaway is Fantine, Amanda Seyfried is Cosette, Eddie Redmayne is Marius, Helena Bonham Carter and Sacha Baron Cohen are Madame Thénardier and Thénardier. Samantha Barks, who we just talked about, is Eponine. We're going to get to her. Those are our big people. Oh, and also this guy named Colin Wilkinson plays the bishop.
Yeah, a little cameo.
Oh, and Francis Ruffalo plays one of the lovely ladies.
Oh, good.
But this is our cast.
Yeah.
These are the people that we have. And also, well, I'll get to someone else in a second.
Yeah. Okay. So we sat down to watch this movie. We're at the very beginning. It's the now bring me prisoner. No, I'm now bring me prisoner 24601. And in my innocence, my very first note, the first 5 minutes of the movie is, what have they done to the lyrics? Please explain. What is happening? What's happening, please? And I hate to assume anything about Tom Hooper, like what he understands or didn't understand or doesn't understand, because it doesn't matter ultimately.
Well, much like the bread at Valjean's trial, we have this movie to enter into evidence.
Yeah, but it didn't seem to me that he quite got the point or the reasoning behind this musical being sung through. So you have the songs, right? Like you have the songs.
Yeah.
The songs are all sung. All the songs are sung. And then you have the recitative type bits that are in between. And the actors, what they do is they just kind of transition between speaking and singing just sort of constantly. Whereas in the musical, the whole thing would just be sung and you would have the music behind them and it would kind of be, it's sung through. And it struck me in this very first scene, this very first exchange between Javert and Valjean, that something odd was happening, that like they kept sort of starting to sing and then stopping and then starting and then stopping because they were going into just speaking. And I was like, what are they doing? And that never got any better. They did that throughout. The whole movie was this weird combination of speaking and singing that was it was jarring to me knowing the musical very well. I guess I can't speak to how jarring it would be if you were coming to this like totally fresh. So like I guess in its defense, I don't know what it would sound like if you didn't know Les Mis at all.
I mean, that's the context we live in.
Yeah. The other thing is that one of the things that, again, I don't want to get into like what I think Tom Hooper understands or didn't understand, but part of the reason you go to a musical is that you like to hear the music. And you can't hear the music at all. The mix is so strange in this. Do you like
Yeah, I think I know why.
okay, because when someone's singing through who am I, or these big emotional numbers, like part of what is driving the emotion is that you're hearing this music swelling behind them, and it's really driving that emotional journey that the characters go on, but like you really can barely hear it. The music is at like 10% and the vocals are at like 90%. It's really, really odd, and it gives the sensation, ironically, because this was the thing that he famously didn't want, it gives the sensation that they're singing to a track.
Yeah.
And not with a big
it's not of a piece.
Orchestra.
It's dissonant.
Yeah, it's very dissonant.
Like it doesn't work together.
Yeah.
This is, I guess there's like three different directions I can go in with this. So first of all, I think I know why the mix was so low. The mix was so low because they recorded the singing on set.
Right.
And when you record the singing on set, sometimes the levels are really good and sometimes they're not. So during Look Down, for example, at the very beginning, all these guys are being surrounded by crashing waves of water, and we're hearing them yelling over the waves all the lyrics to Look Down. None of them are singing.
Yeah.
Like there's no singing going on. No one's hitting a single note. They're all just screaming because that's the only way they can be heard over the water. And I think that happens throughout the movie. So when you're mixing it, you've got these really bad levels for the singing that are mixing in with all of the other like ambient noises. If you bring up the music in the mix, you're not only are you drowning out the ambient noise, you're drowning out the singing. So if you want people to be able to hear what's being sung, you have to keep the music low in the mix.
Yeah.
Which is why it's so rare in the movie for the music to match the singing.
Yeah, but it made for all these like strange moments where like someone would be singing, and in the normal course of the song they like pause for a second. I think it's one of Fontine's songs that I made a note about, that like there's a pause where you're supposed to be hearing music and like you can barely hear anything. It's just sort of this awkward pause, and then she like continues to sing. I will say, with the exception of Look Down, I do think the choral numbers as a rule sound better.
They sound better. Oh no,
solos.
I'm not going to argue they sound better. Of course they sound better.
Because I don't think they can do all the because if you've got 50 people that they're all singing together, like they all have to keep a certain time, you know.
Yeah.
You can't like have artistic license in do you hear the people sing or whatever. You know, everyone in this movie is a good singer with
in their own way,
with some exceptions. Yeah, I mean, I feel bad like because we're dunking so hard on the way that the movie was made, but it really like
it's the basic problem with the movie.
It's the basic problem with the movie.
As long as we're talking about it, I think a couple different things.
Yeah.
One, I think I'm trying to make three different points like at the same time. One is that Tom Hooper doesn't understand musicals. Two, Tom Hooper, I think he has drunk his own Kool-Aid at this point.
Yeah.
He's living a fantasy of movie making that isn't real and isn't borne out by the history of movie making.
Yeah.
And three, it is incredibly disrespectful is not the word I'm trying to find, but it's the best that I can come up with.
Yeah.
Because it's not like Les Mis, like any piece of entertainment. It's not like it deserves a tremendous amount of respect, but it is, like I said, it breaks the show.
Yeah.
It doesn't respect the show enough to make the show work. So let me go back to the beginning. So Tom Hooper doesn't understand musicals because the basic rule of musicals, and it is very reductive, but the idea is you talk until the emotion is too big for talking, so you sing, and then you sing until the emotion is too big for singing, and then you dance.
Right.
Obviously, Les Mis is a little bit different
Well,
because
there's no dancing in Les Mis.
everything is sung, but the emotion is really high the entire time.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the thing that makes Les Mis work, is that the emotion always makes the singing work. It always justifies the presence of song.
Yeah.
Right? If you take, I feel like I'm going to take a point away from you, like something you're probably going to end up making a little bit later, that when you turn any random line into something said rather than something sung, you're robbing it of its musical meaning.
Right. Well, there's a rhythm to it, and
Right?
exactly.
It's kind of like if you were making an adaptation of a Shakespeare show, and you decided, well, I'll just rewrite some of the lines, or I'm going to tell all of my actors to speak really naturalistically.
Which we've seen. We've seen this
yeah.
done, and it doesn't work.
This is
for reasons.
This is the Haley Steinfeld Romeo and Juliet all over again.
Ugh,
it's the same
so
thing
bad.
because you're taking away the thing that makes it work.
There's a musicality, to the language.
I also, I don't want to shit on anyone who says you can't break the rules.
Yeah.
Because of course you can break rules. But I feel like the thing that is consistent across the history of art is that the people who are good at breaking the rules are the people who understand the rules in the first place.
Yeah.
And I have no evidence that Tom Hooper understands the rules in the first place. I don't think he understands how a musical functions. Let's take I Dreamed a Dream, for example.
Yes.
We talked about this earlier. This is an incredibly emotional song. Fantine is what is the one emotion you would ascribe to Fantine during the course of this song?
She's very sad.
She's very sad. And if we were in a dramatic movie that wasn't a musical, how would the actor communicate that they are sad?
She would cry, probably.
Probably, right? But in a musical, you don't cry because you can't cry while you're singing.
You can't cry while you're singing.
Right? So if you can't cry while you're singing...
You can't cry while you're singing.
If you can't cry while you're singing because it makes the singing bad, how do you communicate that you're sad?
Through song.
Through the beauty of the music. That's the thing. If the music is sad and you are singing it with power and you are singing it appropriately, you are communicating that you are sad. You are communicating that you are heartbroken, even though you're not doing things that you would do in a dramatic work, like in a non-musical work, like crying.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why I love Ruthie Henschel, why she's my ride or die as Fantine, is because I think she both sings it beautifully and absolutely 100% communicates that she is utterly gutted and heartbroken and sad.
Yes.
But never cries.
Does not cry.
Once. So when you have someone like Tom Hooper, I don't think Tom Hooper understands that point. I don't think he understands how musicals communicate emotion because he's coming at it from someone who makes non-musical movies. So if I have an actor who's got to communicate an emotion, well, in a movie you cry. So I'm going to have my actor cry. But that doesn't work. That's not how musicals function. That's not how they work. So he's breaking a rule without understanding it.
Yeah, and I guess I would add something like slightly more like simplistic, I suppose, which is like, okay, so yes, logistically, it is you can't cry and sing. Because if you're crying, you can't make the sound that is required of you to sing, just physiologically. But also, to take it back to Shakespeare, right? If a character is doing a monologue, with some exceptions, but generally speaking, we are not to understand that the character is literally standing there by themselves in the middle of a field or, a castle or wherever they happen to be and speaking these words out loud. A monologue is generally understood to be sort of the equivalent of singing a song or a solo, which is that it is the expression of what the character is thinking and feeling or doing like in their mind, but it is not naturalistic, right?
Right.
By its nature.
Or I would say realistic might be the word for it.
Sure. By its nature, the nature of musical theater is that it is not, call it naturalistic, call it realistic, what you will. But it is a fact that people don't tend to break into song, walking down the street or sitting in their house crying about, things that are happening to them. And so if someone is singing a song, if Fantine is singing I Dreamed a Dream, we are not to understand that literally there is a physical person sitting in a room singing about her life. And if somebody else walked in the natural world, that what they would see is a person actually singing. What they would see is a person like thinking about how sad they are. So if you're singing a song, you're not crying because you're not crying in your mind. Because you're not actually talking. Like if I was talking to you and I was upset about something, I might cry while I was talking. But if I'm thinking about something, you're not crying in your mind having an emotion. You're crying in the real world having a physical reaction, but that has nothing to do with the song that you're singing. Am I making sense?
Yes. Like your brain doesn't have tear ducts.
Yeah.
Like your internal monologue doesn't have tear ducts and phlegm. It doesn't produce that. Like
that's right.
When you hear someone sing, you're hearing their mind. You're hearing their thoughts and their emotions.
Yes.
Can I give an example?
Sure.
Okay, later in the movie, we get the Thénardiers come back. We get beggars at the feast. So the way it functions in the show is Thénardier saw the whole thing with Valjean in the sewer and Marius. He didn't know it was Marius, but he goes to Marius and says, hey, your father-in-law is a piece of shit. His name's Jean Valjean. He stole this thing off of a corpse in the sewer. And this is my proof that he murdered a person and stole this thing. And Marius in the show looks down at it. I'm forgetting the line exactly, but he looks down.
I know this. This was mine.
I know this. This was mine. And he sings it. But he's singing it to himself.
Yes.
We're hearing his thoughts in song. And in every production of it, the Thénardiers, they don't respond to that line because
it's in his mind.
He didn't say that to them. He's not actually saying that to them. He's thinking it. And so they continue on. The only thing that makes sense for Thénardier to keep going on the track that he's going is if he didn't hear Marius say that line. Because if he did hear Marius say that line, he'd be like, holy fuck, the jig is up.
I'm out of here.
I'm out. This whole thing didn't work. In this movie, I don't think Tom Hooper understands the difference between a line that's thought and a line that is actually communicated to another person.
Yes.
So in that scene, Eddie Redmayne does sing that line, but Sacha Baron Cohen and Helena Bonham Carter hear it.
Yeah, and they react to it.
But they still keep going with the song, and dramatically it doesn't work anymore at that point because they shouldn't actually be hearing that because it was his mind that was speaking that.
Yeah.
And I know that's one example, but there's 100 of them throughout this movie.
Yeah. So, okay.
So he doesn't understand musicals.
He doesn't understand musicals.
When can I get to my second point?
What's your second point?
He doesn't understand movie making.
Okay.
And I know that is a wild accusation to make for someone who's an Oscar-nominated director, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who have worked with him who would say that I am full of shit, and I will own that, and it's fine, but I'm going to sit here in my truth, and I'm going to speak what my heart is telling me to speak, which is this. He's so full of himself and he's completely pretentious about this grand idea. You hear him say a million times, this is the first time anyone's done anything like this. First of all, do you know that back when sound started in movies, do you know how musicals worked?
They just sang the
Everyone
songs.
sang live on set because they hadn't figured out how to make it work
ADR.
to do live tracks, to do like sing-alongs with tracks. So first of all, that's how movies started, was by doing this. Second of all, I'm gonna give you two examples. Remember the Fantastics movie from 1995?
No.
They made a movie of the Fantastics. Apparently it's terrible. I've never seen it.
Yeah.
Whole thing sung live. The whole thing, sung live on set. They did not do a track. Here's a movie that you probably would have heard of, Hedwig and the Angry Inch.
Yeah.
All of that was sung live.
Yeah.
That was a decade before this movie.
I guess it's a little bit different because the songs are all like rock, like they're playing the instruments and everything too. But yes, I understand
But it
your
doesn't
point.
matter. It's still a musical that was being done live.
Yes.
So
I didn't know they did that live actually.
that's my understanding.
Yeah.
That's my
that doesn't surprise me at all.
Maybe there's exceptions because there should be exceptions to getting to B. So that's A, he's wrong to say that they're the first ones to do it. B, it's stupid. It is bad filmmaking. It is a silly, stupid thing to do to your actors and your crew because, and I really believe this, if you go to a sound director or any sound engineer on a movie and you say, here's my plan, every line of dialogue spoken in this movie, it is all going to be recorded live on set by my actors. I do not want any ADR. I don't want any dialogue recorded later. None of it. The reaction I am sure you would get is, well, that's going to be hard. Like, that is definitely going to be hard. We'll do our best, but that is going to be hard. Like, that's dumb anyway.
Yeah.
That's a dumb thing to want. Why would you limit yourself that way? It was dumb to do it with just dialogue, but to then say you want to do it with singing, I think ignores how movies are made, because he draws this connection. He draws this straight line between someone lip syncing along with something they're not actually, the sounds that are not coming out of their mouth at that moment, and how that makes something unrealistic. The history of filmed drama is sometimes what you hear was recorded on set and sometimes what you hear was not recorded on set. That's how movies work. It's like saying, lighting is unrealistic, or costumes are unrealistic, or let's say score. Do you think he could have done Les Mis without the score?
Yeah, why didn't he have just the orchestra sitting on set? Like the orchestra
No,
was recorded later.
I'm saying no orchestra.
Yeah.
Because the orchestra wasn't there when these people were doing
That's
this.
what I'm saying.
Just have them sing a cappella the entire time. He set an arbitrary line in the sand, and it didn't need to exist.
Yeah.
That's my problem with
Well,
it.
and the other thing too, like all these interviews, you know, they were touting because it's more natural. It's more natural.
They
And
kept
like,
saying realistic. That was the
realistic.
word they kept using, and that is
Realistic.
like fundamentally not how this works.
Well, it's just like watching the behind the scenes of the lengths they had to go to make this work. I just kept laughing because I was like, what could be less realistic than the way that they're doing this stunt, you know, this stunt performance, this gimmick essentially.
It is a gimmick.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. I had a third point. I can't remember what it was, but we'll get to it. Maybe we should run through everything really quickly.
I want to talk about some of the performances that the individual performances that we saw.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's just start with the big man himself.
Okay.
Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman is a legit musical theater performer. Like, I think that some of the conversation I've heard about his performance in this movie does not give him enough credit for the fact that, like, he knows how to fucking do 8 shows a week. I have seen him act and dance and sing his heart out. I saw him in The Boy from Oz. He carried the whole show. He sang and danced through the whole thing. He was amazing. Like, he got his start doing there's a performance of Oklahoma you can see him in.
It's
like,
pretty great.
he is a legit musical theater performer. This is nothing against his talent and his bona fides.
However,
the sound that he is making with his body in this movie is not pleasant to listen to. And I guess it's because he didn't drink water. I think it's a bigger problem than that. We talked about this earlier. What is the thing that I think makes Valjean such an interesting character in musical theater? Valjean is a tenor.
He's a tenor.
Hugh Jackman is not a tenor.
He's not a tenor.
He's not a tenor.
That's it. Like, everything.
He can't hit the notes.
Everything stems from that.
Yeah.
He is wrong for this part. Here's the crazy thing. Do you know who he's perfect for?
Javert.
Javert. He would have been amazing as Javert because all of that is in his range.
Yeah.
That's in his wheelhouse as a singer.
Jeremy took photographs of me listening to him sing Bring Him Home, because at that point I had lost my mind, first of all, because the movie was not very good. But here's a challenge for you. Just like listen to Colin Wilkinson singing Bring Him Home, and then just listen. Don't watch anything. Like don't have Hugh Jackman's face in your mind. Just listen to the recording. Like, the sounds that he is making are not pleasant sounds.
And the function of musical theater is the beauty of the music is actually communicating emotional state.
Yeah.
So if the music is not beautiful, then it's not communicating the emotion that it needs to.
Yeah, it's like Bring Him Home is written for a tenor to sing. Essentially, it's this gentle, delicate. It's a prayer. He's singing to God, praying for this young man to
live and bone his daughter.
And
you love her as a father.
And this just this heartfelt prayer, you know, as it swells, as it crescendos, and he says, if I die, let me die, let him live. He's saying, God, you and I made a bargain long ago about those candlesticks. Like, I am offering myself up. I will die for this man. I don't even like him. I don't even really know him. But I'm willing to die for this man. And I'm like getting a little like choked up just like thinking about it. But it is such an emotional song, such a pure song. It's a prayer to the Lord from his heart and from his soul. And the noise that Hugh Jackman makes is so jarring that I don't know. I just don't know.
So can I give another example?
Sure.
So there are some people in this movie who I think are very, very good. So I'm going to name 3 of them right now. I think Eddie Redmayne, Amanda Seyfried, and Samantha Barks are fantastic.
Yeah.
And when they do A Heart Full of Love.
Yeah.
When they do that, the trio right there. I think it's musically, I think it's the best moment in the show.
Yeah.
Maybe that and Do You Hear the People Sing at the end.
Yeah.
Not the way they did Do You Hear the People Sing in the movie, because I don't agree with that.
It was not good.
I don't like that at all.
But the
maybe
last
maybe
final
I'll get to
moment.
that.
Yeah.
But I think it's musically the best moment, and I think they're the three best performers because I think they fucked with the tempo the least. It's because Samantha Barks knows it because she played Eponine. She kills it. She's amazing. Amanda Seyfried, it turned me on. She's got that vibrato, that like Snow White vibrato.
Yeah.
Which I think it turned me off a little bit, but honestly, now that
Katie Hall does the same thing. Like it's sort of how Cosette is written, as this is sort of coloratura soprano.
Sure, no. But what I was going to say is, like, now that we've like kind of refallen in love with Michael Ball, now I love the vibrato.
Yeah.
I don't really care. Like, I think she's great. I don't have a problem with it at all. I think she's kind of perfect for it. I mean, Eddie Redmayne he's fantastic. I mean, not a trained singer at all, but he trained to do this, and he kind of kills it.
Yeah, Eddie Redmayne's performance in this, I don't know if this is what it reminded me of, and I don't know if this story is apocryphal or not, but apparently, so the story goes, when Robin Williams was doing Aladdin, they said, you're going to have to sing as the genie, and he was like, oh, I don't sing. And they said, oh, but you can do impressions of people singing. And he said, oh, yeah, of course I can do that, and like completely killed it. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that actually happened or not.
That's true. Like they
yeah.
all talked about that, and every behind the scenes on Aladdin they talked about that.
But that's what Eddie Redmayne's performance reminded me of, because he kills it in this. He's not a trained singer. He clearly went to a vocal coach and said, I got to do this in 6 weeks or whatever it was. Help me. And they were like, yes, I can. But it's like, okay, I'm not a singer, but I can act as if I'm a singer because I'm a very good actor. So I can make the sounds come out of my body that sound good, and I can learn how to do that. Again, like as you said before, like I don't think anyone in this movie is stupid. Like I think Eddie Redmayne's probably very smart. I think he's a very smart person.
Yes.
I think he understood what he was being asked to do. That's how it struck me.
It was a combination of things with him. I feel like he was up to the task, but also he was cast really well.
Yeah.
And I don't doubt that. Like it has nothing to do with whether Hugh Jackman or Russell Crowe were or weren't up to the task.
Yeah, we got to talk about Russell Crowe in a second.
They're not good casting.
Yeah.
Like that's the casting director's fault. That's the producer's fault. That's the director's fault for letting that continue. I don't blame them for taking the job. They're actors.
Yeah.
That's their job, is to show up and do the thing. And they showed up and they did the thing, but it wasn't good casting. Eddie Redmayne showed up, did the thing, and it's good casting.
Yeah.
And it made it work.
Yeah. And he does a great job. Samantha Barks, obviously, like, amazing. And it is funny too, because like Samantha Barks, as you pointed out, like she's played Eponine on stage, but she's not played Eponine in a fucking rainstorm soaking wet with a piano tinkling in her ear with no orchestra. You know what I mean? Like she's like, no, I can sing this song in the rain. I can sing it standing up. I can sing it lying down. Like I can sing this song.
Yeah.
And I don't think everybody could do that. Like
no.
she's pretty talented.
But back to my original point, we hear the three of them do the Heart Full of Love trio. Later in the movie, that musical, one of the things we didn't call out is that one of the beautiful things about this show is that there's only like 4 pieces of music in the entire show, and they're all just repeated throughout with new lyrics. So if you were to say, I don't know, add a new song for the movie that was using different music than something that already existed in the show, it would stick out like a sore thumb.
And it does.
And not work. But we'll get to the song suddenly in a little bit. Later in the show, there's another piece of music that calls back that same arrangement, which is Marius and Cosette and Valjean singing. And Valjean is singing the Eponine part because he's never going to get the thing he wants. And where Eponine was singing about Marius, Valjean is singing about Cosette, and it's really beautiful. When Valjean comes in that song, it is piercing and painful,
it's very painful
and awful. It doesn't work. Never mind the fact that Gilles Normand is present. Oh my God, there's so much stuff to talk about. I apologize that this is like one of the longest episodes we've ever done, but we have so much to talk about with this.
I have another example of Tom Hooper like not understanding how music works.
Yeah.
So like the song "Drink with Me."
Yep.
It's the boys and the ladies singing in the tavern, like before the big battle, or like in between the battles. Drink with me, 2 days gone by, to the nights that used
Everyone
to
knows
be.
the song.
It's to find
That's the one I skip. I skip it every time.
It's like the men singing and then the women echoing. So it's like the women are there too, right? The women's chorus. And that's how the song is written. It's for the men to sing, the men's voices, the men's vocal parts to sing, and then the women's parts to sing. And the way Tom Hooper directed it, he's like, "Oh no, there's no women in this tavern. This is all boys." So when they sing the song, despite the fact that there is a woman's part in the song to sing, there's no women there, which A, like, why? But B, what he does is he just has Gavroche, like the one boy, sing the women's part. So it's like the men sing "Drink With Me, Today's Gone By," and then Gavroche echoing, and it doesn't make sense for the character of Gavroche, and it also doesn't make sense musically. It's very strange, and I would like to talk about Russell Crowe now, please.
Let's do it. Why not?
Okay. I mean,
Before you say anything, can I say something that might be a hot take?
sure.
Russell Crowe is amazing casting as Javert.
Yeah.
And if this was a non-musical version of Les Mis, he could be incredible as Javert. I think he is incredible casting.
Yeah.
But it is a musical.
Well, I think there was some folly either with the director telling the actors what they were able to do or the actors assuming they were able to do things because I think, for example, Eddie Redmayne was like, "Oh no, I don't know how to sing. I'm going to go to someone. I'm humble enough to go to someone to tell me how to sing this part, and I'm going to really study and do a great job." It seems to me that there was some hubris, perhaps on the part of Hugh Jackman, like, "Oh, I'm a baritone, but I can sing this tenor part. It's fine. It's totally fine. Tom Hooper's telling me I can do it. I can do it." Russell Crowe being like, when we sat down to watch this movie, I believe you turned to me and said, "Just remember that Russell Crowe is actually a really good singer, and he's been in a band for like 30 years."
Yeah.
Because it seems to me that either Russell Crowe thought in his head, "I know how to sing. I've been in a band for 30 years," or someone said to him, "It's fine, you'll do fine, you know how to sing, you don't need like any extra instruction." And we even heard this interview where he was like, "Yeah, I went to like 4 different vocal coaches and like took 4 different vocal lessons." And as the guy in that YouTube video points out, like, you can't just go to like 4 different vocal teachers because there's no like one way to do things. So like you go to 4 different vocal coaches, you're going to get told 6 different things. Like you have to sort of pick a lane and stick with it if you're going to learn to sing a very large and difficult musical theater role in 3 weeks or whatever it is. I will say this for Russell Crowe. He hits the notes almost 100% of the time, which is more than you can say for Hugh Jackman, honestly.
Yes.
Like, he's in tune. But I think the problem is that he has a hard time acting and singing at the same time. And so he'll act and then he'll sing, and then he'll act and then he'll sing.
Well, like,
but the two don't ever really go together, so it comes off as a very wooden performance. Also, there's a fucking sword fight, and I think
we'll get to that in a second. But no, like, for example, when he does Stars and when he does Javert's Suicide,
yeah,
the staging of it is he's just standing on top of something. Like during Stars, he's on a balcony, and during Javert's Suicide, he's up on like the top of the bridge. All he's doing is pacing back and forth.
Yeah.
He's just pacing back and forth. Because one of the things that's nice in the show is that you're singing to an audience.
Yeah.
Or you're singing to God. You're singing to the, to the spotlight. In this, it's just pacing back and forth.
Yeah.
Just pacing back and forth, not looking at anything in particular, trying so hard to sing, trying so hard to hit the notes.
He's trying so hard. He's
like
God bless him. He's trying hard.
The performance and the music just never matches up.
Yeah. I feel like the one thing I had heard about this was like, oh, Russell Crowe, he's like laughably bad. He's so bad. And like having watched it, I have a lot of sympathy in my heart for Russell Crowe.
Oh yeah.
Cause like, I think Tom Hooper set him up to fail so badly. I just think he was not given any of the resources that he needed. And he is great casting as Javert. Like he would have been he's a great Javert, but he can't really sing. He can't sing Javert.
He can't sing this Javert.
Yeah.
This part, the way it's written, he is not the right singer for it.
Yeah.
And that's not his fault.
Yeah.
If you're not right for a part, that's not a personal failing.
Yeah.
Not everyone is right for a part.
He just can't sing the songs very well. He does okay. I mean, like, watching Hugh Jackman, I at one point I turned to you and I was like, honest to God, if I saw someone making this noise in a community theater production of Les Mis, I would be like, God bless him, he's trying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wouldn't even be good for like an amateur production. And this is the movie.
Well, something else that I'm really curious about, because the actors did so many takes,
Yeah.
as we know, I wonder if they did better jobs than this, but those weren't the takes that they went with.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure because we even saw a clip of like Hugh Jackman and Russell Crowe doing the confrontation at like some thing, and they sounded great.
I think they're on Conan or something
yeah,
like that.
they sounded great. They can sing.
Mhm.
They can sing fine. They were set up to fail so badly. I really put the blame on Tom Hooper for this, and I usually don't have like this strong of a like point of view, I guess, on a director's influence on how bad something is. But like, man, I just think he didn't get it. Like, I just think he didn't get what a musical is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's like a hot take on my part or like me having like really hard opinions about musicals. I don't think this is pleasant to watch as a musical. Also, why is there a sword fight?
Well, yeah, so that's I think one thing I do think it's important to say is that I don't want to take anything away from people that do have an emotional reaction to this movie.
Yeah.
Because for me, like I can't have an emotional reaction to it because to me, this is a folly. What I'm watching right now is Tom Hooper's folly. I am watching a director with questionable talent and no taste doing a bad job, and I'm watching people being set up to fail left and right. What I'm watching is a mess.
Yeah.
To me, this movie is a mess, and I cannot take it seriously while I'm watching it. But I don't want to take away anything from people who get something out of it because everyone has an emotional reaction to something different.
Yeah.
It just comes down to values. Like when we're looking at something that is a musical being adapted into a movie, we value certain things.
We value the music.
Because the music is integral to the musical.
Like, and I don't think that's a crazy point of view.
I don't think it is, but I want to make it clear that I don't think anyone's wrong for loving it.
Yeah.
Because
No.
if you found something to love, it's not like it's bad. It's not like there's nothing good in it. And that's to me, and this has come up on the show before, this is one of the reasons why the movie frustrates and upsets me so much is because if it was 100% bad, I wouldn't care.
Yeah.
It's the teacher who, I've said this before, it's the teacher who's really frustrated with a student who could be an A student failing.
Yeah.
Being more frustrated than someone who has no hope of being an A student failing.
Yeah.
Because they know that they can do better.
Yeah.
And I look at the people involved in this and I know they are all capable of better work than this.
Yeah. And not for nothing, like, I just want to say, like, live theater is an incredibly exclusive medium. And you and I are privileged to have seen many live, have had the opportunity to see many live shows and performances in our lifetimes. But there are so many people that is just like so inaccessible, or even like, man, seeing any live performances is a once in a lifetime opportunity. But a lot of those people love musicals and love Les Mis and love, any musical theater, but they just don't have the opportunity to go see something live. So I think one thing we are not saying is like watching musicals making musicals into a movie is bullshit. You should just go see it live. Like, it's always better live. It can only be good live. Like,
I'm 100% not saying
we're
that.
definitely, neither of us are saying that. And I just think it's worth noting that, like, the fact that this movie exists and is easily accessible, much more easily accessible than many of these concert performances, honestly, that we're talking about. Not for nothing, this may be some people's only access to musical theater at all.
Yeah.
And I think it's really snotty of me to say, well, it's better than nothing. But like, it is better than nothing. Like, if all you've ever wanted is to see, if you've heard the recordings and you really want to see people act out these songs and these roles, and this is something that really speaks to you, like, this is something that is accessible to everyone, to everybody. Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true. But it doesn't take away any of the criticisms that I have
No,
about it.
it
But I think it's worth. I'm glad I don't think we need to go down that path any further. But I'm glad we explored it
I just
a little bit.
I have a lot of thoughts about the accessibility or lack thereof of live theater.
Yeah. I guess looking at my notes, there's a few things I want to mention that I would feel bad if we get to the end of this that we don't, because this is our one shot at Les Mis the musical. Can we run through our notes a little bit?
Sure.
Helena Bonham Carter. Why do they keep casting her in musicals?
Well,
I don't understand it. I don't understand it because I saw her do the exact same thing in Sweeney Todd.
I literally wrote down, oh, now it's Sweeney Todd.
Yeah. Helena Bonham Carter is a fantastic actor. She is not a great singer. And she it has this very weak kind of reedy voice.
Yeah, very whispery.
That does not work for the material. And that goes with Sacha Baron Cohen as well. Sacha Baron Cohen is doing a weird thing in this movie that doesn't make sense to me, where when he's himself, quote unquote, he's speaking with like a Cockney accent, which is how the show was written in English. But then when he's doing Master of the House and he's talking to guests, he's putting on a French accent.
I think they just said, like, wound him up and said, go. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think he got any direction. I don't think there's any consistency in his performance.
I think Sacha Baron Cohen goes in a direction really hard.
Yeah.
I think he needs a director to rein him in and point him in a different direction.
Yeah.
And I think Tom Hooper was not the director to do that.
No.
I don't like Sacha Baron Cohen's performance in this movie.
I found him very unpleasant the whole time he was on screen.
Yeah, but not like fun unpleasant, because Thénardier is supposed to be unpleasant.
Yeah.
But not the right kind of unpleasant. Let's talk about Suddenly.
Okay.
This is the new song. So after Valjean has gotten Cosette away from the Thénardiers, he sings a song to her called Suddenly, which is all about how he suddenly is taking on this responsibility and how it means something to him to be a father, to be in a position to be a father. It was written by Bublé and Schoenberg for this movie at the behest of Tom Hooper. And to hear them talk about it, to hear Hooper talk about it, he said, you know what? This is my one thing with the show is we really needed this moment to hear what was going on inside Valjean's head. First of all, no, we didn't.
Bullshit.
Because that was already in the show. If you wanted to hear Valjean's feelings about Cosette, you have many times to hear that over the course of the show. That's in there. That is not subtext. That is text. The second thing is, this song was written so they could win an Oscar.
Turns out.
That's it. And I know that's cynical, but that is, no one will ever convince me that they did this for any reason other than there's no way we'll be nominated for an Oscar for Best Original Song because none of the songs are original. So we need to add a song. This is something that happens to so many movie musicals at this point.
Yeah, it's like I don't even blame them for doing it. It's traditional. Like they did it for Evita, one of my favorite movie musicals of all time.
Evita has a lot of live singing in it too, doesn't it?
Does it?
I think so.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, Suddenly does not work. It sticks out like a sore thumb. It is not a good song, and it is not at the level of the rest of the music in Les Mis.
I mean, I guess the one thing I'll say to speak to how memorable it is as a song is I have no memory of it at all.
Oh yeah, no, it's nothing.
Yeah.
It's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. There's another thing about this movie that I want to talk about, and this is something that I think Tom Hooper wanted to make Les Mis, but I think he wanted to make a non-musical version of Les Mis. I'm sure he loved Les Mis because he adds a lot of stuff back to it
from the book
and from other versions of it that they removed from the musical in order to make the musical work.
Yeah.
So, for example, Gavroche lives in an elephant.
Yeah.
That's something we don't see in any of the versions. In this one, we do it. Fauchelevent is there. When Valjean has Cosette, they go into the monastery, the convent, and Fauchelevent is there, and they have a whole scene where they are speaking to each other in spoken dialogue. Fauchelevent says, "I am Fauchelevent. You are Monsieur Madeleine. You saved my life," and he says, "Fauchelevent, you have to save me." All of that would work in a non-musical version of Les Mis, but it sticks out so badly to me that you suddenly have a scene you've added that has no music to it in Les Mis the musical, a musical famously with all singing wall to wall.
He puts in Marius's fucking grandfather.
Monsieur Gillenormand is in it, and it doesn't work. And they add him in one of the songs too, and he's nothing. And when I see this, I actually don't think that Tom Hooper gets points for being faithful to the source material.
No, because he's being like so. It's
pretentious.
Yeah, it is like, I'm going to go back to the book. It's like, no, but this isn't an adaptation of the book. This is an adaptation of the musical Les Misérables by Bublé and Schoenberg. Come on, what are you doing?
Like, if Gillenormand, I would love to have seen a version of the musical that had Gillenormand and had Fauchelevent, and I think it would be a really fun thing to do for someone to say, okay, well, if Les Mis just repeats musical themes constantly but with new lyrics, what are the things, like, I would love to see a scene where Fauchelevent is talking to the Mother Superior about how she should hire his brother Ultime Fauchelevent.
Yeah, and we'll get the coffin scene, bring it all in.
But do it to the tune of the Thénardier's Waltz of Deception.
Right.
Because it is a deception.
See, that's better than anything Tom Hooper added.
But that's an example of something I would love to see. I would have loved to see, so they moved Do You Hear the People Sing? It's not right after, Red and Black?
yeah.
Instead, they moved Do You Hear the People Sing to Lamarck's funeral procession.
Yeah.
And so it becomes this thing where all of the people who are watching the funeral procession suddenly revolt and they jump on the coffin, which has been done in a lot of other Les Mis movies. It wasn't even in the book necessarily that way, but it is in other movies. So I think Tom Hooper just wanted to remake a movie. But the thing about Do You Hear the People Sing is the people are singing it like it's a rallying cry, but that's not the function of the song Do You Hear the People Sing. I would have loved to see them do Take Look Down.
Yeah.
Take Look Down and have the soldiers singing to the crowd, look down, don't look us in the eye.
Yeah.
Because they are establishing power over these people and then they take it back. That's something musically I would have liked to see, and it would have been fitting with the show. There is an experimental version of Les Mis that I would love to see that expands it and adds Gilles Normand and adds Fauchelevent and adds these different scenes, but does it the way that the scenes function in the original, which is to those pieces of music. But it's not what they did for this.
Yeah, and again, like, I hope this isn't too nitpicky, but not for nothing. In the musical Les Misérables, the song Do You Hear the People Sing comes before the song One Day More. And in the song One Day More, there's this musical crescendo where everybody's singing, and then suddenly you hear, Do you hear the people sing? Which is a callback to a song we've already heard. But if you haven't heard that song yet, because they moved it and it's later, it doesn't work musically or as a way to drive the plot. It doesn't work. The musical is the way it is for a reason.
Bottom line,
God damn it.
Hooper
Why would you do that?
He does not get points for adding things back from the story, because the thing that makes Les Mis work is that they worked on it for years to hone it down to this kind of perfect musical encapsulation of the show that, yes, leaves things out. I was talking in one of the other episodes about how I don't like when Marius is the head of the revolutionaries. In Les Mis, the musical, though, it works for me, because the music supports it.
Yeah.
And I get to know the character in a way musically that makes me empathize with him in ways that I don't in movies where he just is one of the leaders of the revolutionaries. So you don't have to add Gilles Normand to give him this backstory. The musical did the work for you, and you're undermining the work that they did originally. And of course they went along with it because Cameron Mackintosh told them to, and he's the one with the money. Anyway. They move stars. They do a whole. I think I'm done. But you know what? I do want to throw one final thing out for me. Like, this is something we talked about with Lea Salonga being cast as Fantine in the 25th anniversary show, and that's someone being recast. That's someone who has a history with the show, but they're too old to play the character that they played before. But we want to keep them, so we'll give them this other part. But the problem is, if the part isn't written for an actor of their range, their musical range, it's not going to work that well.
Yeah.
The exact same thing happens in this movie because, from just a pure on paper perspective, having Colin Wilkinson play the bishop is wonderful.
Sure.
Seeing him show up originally,
delightful.
It filled my heart. And there's, even now watching it and really not enjoying this movie, seeing him show up makes me happy. But the problem is, the part is not written for a tenor.
Yeah.
So he doesn't do a good job singing these songs. Why would you take Colin Wilkinson and put him in a position to not be at the level of Colin Wilkinson?
He was also probably struggling with the way that they had them sing live, because like it's not to set anybody up for success in this way.
This movie is broken.
Yeah.
It is fundamentally broken. For me, I don't want to say it doesn't work, because all I can say is for me it does not work. And do you want to? I just feel like normally we have fun dunking on stuff. I feel like we're not actually, even though we have a lot to say and we're very passionate about this, I feel like we're not getting the same sense of satisfaction out of dunking on this that we sometimes do.
It to be good.
We love Les Mis, and these people are better than this. And I think letting Tom Hooper near it is Cameron Mackintosh's great folly.
Yeah.
And
shame on him.
Shame on all of them.
Shame.
So something happened a number of years later, just 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That was, like everything Les Mis, it was Cameron Mackintosh's brainchild. I want to describe kind of how this worked. So It was in the West End for years, and it was at the Queen's Theatre, which has now been renamed to the Sondheim Theatre. It was refurbished and renamed to the Sondheim Theatre. In January of 2019, it was announced that it was going to be refurbished in July. So Les Mis had to move, and so it was going to close. But it was one of the longest running shows, I think the longest running show. So they didn't want to lose that. So they had to figure out how to keep it going. So what they decided to do is they moved it to a theater next door to run from August to November while the theater was being redone as like a special performance, and then move it back to the Sondheim Theater.
Mm-hmm.
What they decided to do after they announced that was, well, instead of doing a full production in the other theater, we're going to do it as a staged concert, kind of like the 10th anniversary and the 25th anniversary show.
Yeah.
It was going to be staged. There's going to be some staging and there's going to be costumes, but it's not going to be fully, acted out.
Yeah.
And we're going to get some great people to come back and do it. So Alfie Boe going to play Valjean, and other people who we'll get to.
Mm.
It was performed for months. One of the final performances was taped, and it is available to watch. And we did watch it, and I've been looking forward to this for a long time.
Yeah.
Do you feel that Cameron Mackintosh in any way redeemed himself with the production of this?
A bit,
right?
It was really fun.
This is pretty great.
Yeah.
It's pretty great.
Michael Ball, man, God bless him. Talk about okay.
This is, by the way, directed by Nick Morris, and Lawrence Connor and Jean-Pierre Van der Spoy did the stage direction and musical direction for it.
So they brought Alfie Boe back to reprise his role as Jean Valjean, and they brought Michael Ball back to play Javert. And I kind of thought it was going to be stunt casting.
Well, it is stunt casting.
It is stunt cast. I mean, it is stunt casting. But, it is a legit performance.
Colin Wilkinson as the bishop is stunt casting, and it doesn't work.
Yeah. This is a legit performance. Like Michael Ball, I think, really worked hard to not sound like Michael Ball. Like, it comes out sometimes, like in some of his notes and some of his solos, but he's taking it so seriously, and then every so often you just kind of see him break, and you see that little Michael Ball smile, and it just made it so delightful to watch. Like, all of his scenes with Alfie Boe, knowing that the two of them are best friends. And they've done 3 albums together. It's so sweet. I love it. I love watching. Talk about, okay, I didn't feel like Alfie Boe and Norm Lewis had the chemistry that I really look for in a Valjean Javert couple. These guys, man, they're great together. It was really fun to watch. And I was really excited to watch this performance because the actor playing Fantine is an actor named Carrie Hope Fletcher, who is really amazing, and she's really big right now. She's doing Andrew Lloyd Webber's new Cinderella. She's playing Bad Cinderella.
Bad Cinderella?
Yeah, it's like goth Cinderella. And
Andrew Lloyd Webber, famously the most rock and roll.
She's kind of his muse right now, which
really?
is cool. But she's a YouTuber. So imagine yay random musical theater YouTuber. Also, by the way, is actually a huge musical theater star. And I was really excited to see her performance as Fantine because I think she's a little bit. They cast her a little bit younger than your classic Fantine,
which I think makes sense.
Which makes total sense. And I was just excited to watch, and she sang "I Dreamed a Dream," and I think I turned to you and I was like, well, that was perfect.
Well,
she did that perfectly.
I think, again, context matters, and I think one of the reasons we enjoyed it as much as we did is because we watched it right after the movie.
Yeah.
If we had watched the 10th, the 25th, and then this in a row, I don't know if we would have liked it as much.
Yeah.
I still think we would have enjoyed it.
Well, I think she did a better job than Leah Salonga, honestly.
Well, I agree with that.
Yeah.
But I think in general, I think we liked it more than we would have.
Yeah.
If only because we watched it after something we didn't like.
Yeah. We're kind of going back to basics here, going back to sort of legit musical theater performances, singing songs in a way that sounds good to our ears.
Yeah. I think one of the things that was nice about this one is that there was very little stunt casting in it,
other than Michael Ball.
Well, no, Alfie Boe is. I think Michael Ball is stunt casting, but I think Alfie Boe is definitely. I would call that stunt casting too.
It's not stunt casting. It's like bringing Colin Wilkinson back for the 10th anniversary.
But
it's like bringing the main guy back to reprise his role. I don't think that's stunt casting.
I think if it was a show, that'd be stunt casting. Like bringing someone back to do something.
All right.
If you were going to see this, you probably weren't going to see Alfie Boe at this point.
Sure.
But because they were doing this special concert, they managed to get Alfie Boe for it.
Okay.
So that to me is like, that's a draw.
Okay.
That's a name they're bringing back. But there was very little of that. Like I would say it's really just Alfie Boe, Michael Ball, and Matt Lucas as Thenardier coming back for it.
Yeah.
And everyone else, the nice thing about watching this is everyone else got to be someone that I'm not saying no one knows these people, but there's certainly none of them are Leah Salonga.
Sure.
None of them are Philip Quast or Norm Lewis or something like that. None of them are Nick Jonas.
No.
Maybe Carrie Hope Fletcher is close.
I was excited to see Carrie Hope Fletcher, but I guess it is a little bit niche.
It was nice to watch in a lot of ways, just a really straightforward, good production of Les Mis that had a couple of people in it who maybe elevated it a little bit.
Yeah.
Like I think Alfie Boe elevates it a little bit because he is just so good. And Michael Ball is so fun.
It was fun. It was really fun. Do you have much to say about it? Like, I just think it was a really fun way to sort of cap our journey through Les Miserables, not just the musical, but this entire journey.
I do have some criticisms of it.
Okay.
So there is one thing that kind of happened throughout that made it not work super well for me, and I think undermined it a little bit. And I don't necessarily blame them for this. I don't think everyone was 100% committed to keeping people within the reality of the show.
Okay.
I think people break a lot in this.
Sure.
Like Michael Ball breaks, Matt Lucas breaks constantly.
Yeah.
They're playing it like a variety show.
Uh-huh.
They're playing it. It reminded me of when, like last Christmas when you got really into watching like old Christmas specials and you watched like the Sinatra Dean Martin Christmas special.
Yeah, like the Judy Garland Christmas special.
They're singing a song, and when they are singing, they are in the emotional reality of the song. But between the lyrics, they're like winking at the crowd and stuff like that, and going like, "Man, do you see me singing this?
Yeah.
Do you see me singing this
I'm
right
doing
now?
Great.
This is fun." But hang on, the chorus is coming up. Like that is something that I think if what you're trying to do is transport people, I think that undermines it a little bit.
Yeah.
I got that in this one a lot.
Yeah.
I especially got it with Matt Lucas. Like I think Matt Lucas and Katie Seacom as Madame Thenardier.
I didn't love. They went a little too far for me.
They were too broad for me, and they did a thing, especially because watching the movie crystallized my feelings about this, which is singing means something in a musical, and it has to mean something that Les Mis is sung through. If you just can pick and choose the lines that are spoken, I think you are undermining the show.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about the two of them is they spoke lines constantly, and they were jumping back and forth between singing and talking. And I think every single time it was to get a laugh.
Yeah.
And it just didn't work for me. Oh, one other thing about the movie. One of the things, I'm not sure when this was introduced to the show. I don't know. In the 25th anniversary shows, the first time I ever saw it, during the Thenardier's Waltz of Deception, Thenardier says, "Let's not haggle for darling Cosette."
Yeah.
And that's the line in the original show. In the 25th anniversary show, he says, "Let's not haggle for darling Colette." And Madame Thenardier corrects him and says, "Cosette." And he goes, "Cosette." And it's like a funny little moment in the show. That might have been added to the stage show before that. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But
I think it always was there because I remember that from the recording I'm most familiar with, which was like the original recording. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So this was not okay. If you're gonna do that joke, all right, fine. It's a little joke. I don't love it. I think it's kind of funny. I don't have a huge problem with it. In the movie, though, they do it every single time Thenardier ever says Cosette's name, he slips up and says Colette instead.
Yeah.
And it overstays its welcome so badly.
It's true.
So when it came back in this one, I hated it.
Yeah.
I hated that joke. So that was just something about the show. I think that it is a very fun show because of it, but it didn't transport me the way like the 10th anniversary or the 25th anniversary did.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they were 100% committed to it.
But it was very fun to watch.
Super fun to watch. Like, yeah, I guess I don't have a lot to say about it. I liked the way it was staged. It's super intimate.
Yeah.
Like it's in a real theater, unlike, the Royal Albert Hall
not in like a
or
stadium.
the O2.
Yeah.
But it's really good and it's worth watching. And Alfie Boe is pretty great. He's a great second behind Colin Wilkinson. So I'm a little scared about what comes next because we have to do quadrants for all of these.
Do you have a list?
I have a list. I have everything.
Okay.
All right.
I'm going to do my best here.
1934, French movie, Harry Bower as Jean Valjean, 3-movie epic. Do you think they cared about the source material?
Yes.
Was it successful?
Yes.
Agreed.
It was really good.
1935, beautiful Frederick March as Valjean in this very Americanized Les Miserables. Do you think they cared about the source material?
No.
Was it successful?
Sure.
You think so?
Yeah, why not?
I think it was unsuccessful.
All right.
I don't think it works.
Let's keep going.
1937, radio drama, Orson Welles. Do you think they cared about the source material?
Yes.
Yeah, was it successful?
Yes.
Agreed. 1952, Michael Rennie as Jean Valjean. Do you think they cared about the source material?
No.
Not even a little. Was it successful?
No, not really.
I would say it's more successful than 35.
All right.
And it ended up not being amazingly successful, but I liked it at first.
Put it on the line.
Yeah. 1958 movie, French, 3 hours, Jean Gabin as Jean Valjean. Do you think they cared about the source material?
Yes.
Deeply. Was it successful?
Yeah, I think so.
It's not my favorite, but yes,
by any measure, yes.
It was successful. 1967 miniseries, Frank Finlay as Jean Valjean. Do you think they cared about the source material?
Maybe.
I think they really did.
Yeah, I think so.
It was so beautifully written. I have to think they did.
That was one with a really good. The good script. Yeah.
Yeah. Was it successful?
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, fantastic. Good luck finding it, everybody, but it's really good.
We have a DVD we can sell you.
1978, Richard Jordan, Anthony Perkins, TV movie. Did they care about the source material?
No.
Can we do a quick sidebar about this?
Sure.
We tried watching this hour-long documentary about Les Mis in general.
Oh, God, yeah.
That was unwatchable. It was one of the worst things I've ever seen. It couldn't decide what it wanted to be about. It was about the show, but it was about the book, and it was about the movies, and it was about France. It had no idea what it wanted to be. And clearly the only movie of Les Mis they could get the rights to show clips from to illustrate their points was this 1978 TV movie.
Because it was supposed to be about the musical, but they weren't showing any clips from the musical, and it seemed like they had made a documentary about Les Mis without actually getting the rights to show any portion of the musical Les Miserables. So they were just showing clips from this movie.
It was ridiculous.
It was very strange.
Unsuccessful.
Yes.
1982 movie directed by Robert Hossein. Do you think they cared about the source material?
Yeah, I guess maybe, yeah.
I really think so.
Yeah.
Considering how different it is from the musical, I think they really wanted to make Les Mis.
Yeah.
Was it successful?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fantastic. 1998, Liam Neeson, Jeffrey Rush, Uma Thurman. Do you think they cared about the source material?
No, they did not.
I don't think so.
No.
Maybe someone did, but
Yeah,
I don't think so.
no.
Was it successful?
Yeah.
Sure.
It was all right.
Sure.
It was pretty good.
Sure, I'll allow it. 2000 miniseries, Gérard Depardieu as Jean Valjean, John Malkovich as Javert. Did you think they cared about the source material?
Of course they did.
Yeah, they did. Was it successful?
No. No.
I think it was.
No.
The French version?
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Okay.
We'll disagree about the American version.
You love her like a father.
I mean, here's the deal. That's memorable. Les Miserables, Shoujo Cosette, the 2007 anime series. Do you think they cared about the source material?
I guess. Yeah.
I mean,
they
sure,
must have.
maybe?
Yeah. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's hard to tell.
Was it successful for what it's trying to be?
For what it's trying to be, sure.
Yeah. As like a pure adaptation of Les Mis,
Yeah.
I found it unsatisfying.
Yeah.
Of course, we didn't watch the whole thing. The 2018 miniseries, written by Andrew Davies, Jean Valjean is Dominic West. Did they care about the source material?
I always find it a little hard to tell with Andrew Davies because he
Yeah.
is kind of a hack, like in the best sense of the word. But sure, let's assume they did.
I think he cared about doing it justice.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
I think he cared about going back to the book and not like taking his cues from the musical.
Sure. Was it successful?
Yes, it
Fantastically
was
so.
really good.
And then we have all these musicals. It's weird to say this because they aren't these pure like movie musicals.
Yeah.
But like, let's just talk about Les Mis the musical.
Yeah.
Did they care about the source material? Schoenberg and Bleublil, did they care about the source material?
Yes, I think so.
And was it successful?
Yes,
Like,
of course it was.
The musical Les Mis, I think, is the best adaptation of Les Mis. I think it
Yes.
is better than anything we watched in the previous two episodes.
Did the movie Les Miserables, directed by Tom Hooper, care about the source material, the musical Les Mis by Bleublil and Schoenberg?
Like ostensibly, but I would argue
No.
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 Was it successful?
No.
No, it was not.
No, it was not. No, it was
Sorry, but
not.
it
I'm sorry,
wasn't.
but no.
And here we stand. And we're done. Episode 100. We're recording this literally on our wedding anniversary. It's our wedding anniversary, too. This is a big
here
day.
we are with all of you.
And you know what? Normally I get stressed about like the extra long episodes, but it's episode 100.
Come on.
And it's a thing we love.
And it's Les Mis.
And
Come on.
For the 5 of you that are still with us here at the end, thank you for sticking with us all the way through the reprise of Do You Hear the People Sing? Not intermission, but the reprise. I do think we clocked in at like a little less than like what some of the performances end up being.
Sure.
Right?
I mean, thank God for that.
Oh, are we done?
Yeah, I think
Is that it?
I think it's got to be.
Well, everyone, this has been Adapt or Perish. If you'd like to find us online, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AdaptCast. You can join our groups on Facebook and Goodreads, and you can also find and follow me on Letterboxd. If you have anything to say that's longer than a tweet, you can always send an email to adaptorperishcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the show, there are 3 great ways you can do it. First, tell a friend. Second, a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice would be greatly appreciated. Third, we are on Patreon. This show will always be free, but if you become a patron, you can get access to Adapt or Perish Plus, our bonus show that releases every other week between episodes of this show, and our patron-only Slack community. It's been a lot of fun, and all the details are at patreon.com/AdaptCast.
Are we doing this?
Yeah, let's put our money where our fucking mouth is.
Take it away, Maestro.
Valjean, at last we see each other plain. Monsieur le Maire, you'll wear a different chain.
Before you say another word, Javert, before you chain me up like a slave again, listen to me, there is something I must do. This woman leaves behind a suffering child. There is none but me who can intercede. In mercy's name, 3 days are all I need. Then I'll return. I pledge my word. Then I'll return.
You must think me mad. I've hunted you across the years. Men like you can never change a man such as you.
Believe
Men
of
like
me,
can
what
never
you
change.
will. There
Men
is
like
a duty
you
that
can
I'm sworn
never
to
change.
do.
No.
You know nothing
2,
of my
4,
life.
6, so
All I did
on.
was steal some
My
bread.
duties to
You
the
know
law.
nothing
You
of
have
the
no
world.
rights.
You
Come
would
with me,
sooner
2, 4,
see
6,
me
so
dead,
on.
but
Now
not
the
before
wheel
I
has
see
turned
this
around.
justice
Jean
done.
Valjean is nothing now.
I
Dare you
am
talk to
warning
me
you,
of
Javert.
crime
I'm
and
a
the price
stronger
you
man
had to
by
pay?
far. There
Every
is
man is
power
born
in
in
me, yet
sin.
my race
Every
is
man
not
must
yet
choose his
run.
way. You
I
know
am warning
nothing of
you,
Javert.
Javert.
I
There
was
is
born
nothing
inside
I
a
won't
jail.
dare. If
I was
have
born
to
with scum
kill you
like
here,
you.
I'll do
I
what
am
must
from the
be
gutter
done.
too.
And this I swear to you tonight.
There is no place for you to hide.
Your child will live within my care.
And wherever you may hide away,
And I will raise her to the light.
I swear to you, I will be